Hey, mate.
Now then, you're right.
How's it going?
Yeah, good. Happy to be here.
What's been keeping you busy today?
Doing a lot of digging on everything that The Great Escape and Creative Starts does.
What
ace.
What have you found out about it?
Watched a really cool documentary called Comeback about addicts recovering in the area.
Shout out Archie Fox.
Yeah, it was ace production on that. I didn't know all the murals were from this either.
Yeah, I think most of the murals in the town, if they've not been done by The Great Escape, they've been facilitated in some way by, well, I say The Great Escape, by Creative Start, and a project attached to that called Paint the Town Proud. Yeah, hopefully we see a few more around town. They're lovely, aren't they?
Yeah, no, it's ace. And I learned all about it through these.
Yeah.
I saw you post about one of these podcasts, and somehow I don't know very much about it, which I'm kind of a bit embarrassed about because it's all brilliant. And obviously I love the town, and I just haven't come across it.
What, the podcast or just everything?
No, everything that's been going on with the recovery stuff. I think it's a brilliant facility, and everything you're doing so far is ace. The podcast come across really, really well. It's cool to hear from people that, again, I wouldn't have crossed paths with. I mean, I'm not a very musically minded person.
Yeah.
That's not my background, but hearing from a couple of local artists about how all that's going and went, my music history goes kind of the sub, in Clee.
Yeah,
in like year 6 and 7 when my brother was in a few bands. And
who's your brother? Was it Alex?
Alex, yeah.
Yeah, I remember your brother Alex.
He was mates with Jazz and everyone. He had a couple.
So how old's Alex?
He's 92. Jan 92.
I was going to say he's 92.
School, yeah.
Is he in my year?
Yeah, he must.
Because I can remember.
I think I know you through him.
I remember you and your brother. I remember you from St. Peter's. Did you both go to Lindsay?
Yeah, it would have been. Yeah.
Did you both go to Lindsay?
Yeah, 2 years apart though. So he would have been in Upper when I was.
So I think maybe he was the year above me, and I was the year above you. So I think I was kind of in the middle of you both.
Could have been, yeah.
But anyway, what's Alex doing with himself now?
Living the dream, really. He's got a family.
Yeah.
He's got a job that's all right, but he seems quite happy. He just had knee surgery, but he's fine now.
Yeah.
He's getting old, so stuff just breaks, doesn't it? Yeah, no, he's fine. So everyone's... They all moved back to Newark as soon as they could from Grimsby.
Oh, right. Is that where your family's from originally?
Yeah. I'm the only one that's grown up here, like, fully. Everyone else, like my dad first moved here with my 2 brothers, and I was a couple of months old when he got a job here.
Well, before we get into this, I like to start my podcast off by taking it back to the beginning. So let's get right into it, right from the beginning. Where did it all start for you?
Grew up in GY. I wasn't that interested as a kid until, as in everything that happens now came from a point when I was about 11. Before that, I wasn't really doing it. I was just kicking footballs around and whatever, just breaking stuff. I broke a lot of bones as a kid. I was in hospital a lot, so I wouldn't like to be my parents. But I got run over when I was 11. And for me, that's kind of when stuff started happening. By a complete accident, because at the time it was a horrible thing.
Take us through it. What actually happened?
So it was I remember the day exactly because it was a Friday in the October half term, and I had some art homework that was due, and I hadn't done it in year 7. And I got run over, and this ends up being a really horrific story, but at the time, I was quite relieved I didn't have to put my homework in because I hadn't done it. Because I was like, I'll be off school for a few days now. But what happened was I got...
Bit far, mate.
Yeah.
Bit drastic.
I must have really not wanted to do it. But I remember exactly. It's Friday the 28th of October, 2005. And I was rolling down my driveway on my brother's scooter and went to cross the road, but a car came around the corner. We lived right on the corner, and the driveway was a bit downhill.
Where was this?
Prince's Road in Cleethorpes. When we lived there briefly.
Yeah, yeah. Isaac's Hill.
Yeah.
Off there, yeah.
The other end of that, so near Grant Street. So they've come down Grant Street, and they've come left, and I'm there. And but my foot got caught in the wheel arch. It was horrible. And at the time, I didn't know it because I was just a kid, and you normally bounce when that happens. I didn't. I was laid next to the car. And the wheel arch, as I found out afterwards, had cut like straight through my leg like a slab of meat and only got as far as my Achilles right at the bottom, and that stayed attached. But the rest of it, like my bones rang out and everything. At the time, I'm laid there on the road, and I'm laid down, and I look down at my foot, and my foot is like that, and my knee's straight. And I'm like, that doesn't look good. My mate runs back inside who I'm with, gets my mum. I'm like, can you just like... My ankle feels a bit twisted, and I wasn't in pain or anything. And I was like, my ankle feels
just in shock.
Can you just like tweak it a bit? And she was like, no. We're going to wait till the ambulance gets here. And I'm like, just laid on the road, just like not knowing what's going on. But she's like, you can't move or anything. Ambulance came, another ambulance came. I was on the road for about 2 hours because they couldn't work out how to pick me up without my foot just going like that.
Yeah.
Horrible thing. Doctor came and they had to do some stuff while I was laid there and push my bones back in. It was somewhat horrible. Went to hospital and I remember going into the theatre room again, not really knowing what's really gone on apart from they had to cut my trousers off and I was fuming because they were my favourite trousers at the time. And went to hospital into theatre and loads of nurses were looking there and they all looked really shocked and I was like, okay. Then woke up, I had a cast on. All right, nice one. In hindsight, what had really happened was they should have cut my leg off.
Should have amputated.
Just below the knee or something, because it was such a horrible wound and it was in a really dirty place to get it done. So if I did that on a footy field, it might not be as bad, but in like an oily, greasy thing on a road.
Yeah, all that brake dust and that in the foot, in the wheel arch. Yeah, it could.
And anyway, I was in hospital for a long time. I had loads of operations and they will eventually, they said, I'll keep my leg, but I'm not going to be able to walk or anything. Eventually
that must be awful at such a young age to be told that there's a prospect you might not be able to walk again. Not just for yourself, but for your family as well.
Family defo. For me, I don't think I really like. I don't think I really believed that was a thing. Like I had a big cast on and it was a bit broken, but I'd broken bones before. I don't think really until I got older, and maybe my parents told me more about it, but I don't really think I understood the gravity of it at the time because when I finally got out of hospital, learning to even just be upright, I was in a hospital bed for weeks, just like this. So when I finally went upright like this, all the blood goes to your leg and it's horrible. But I'd try and put pressure on it in my house and I'd go back to the hospital and they'd be like, yeah, you shouldn't, whatever you're doing, stop doing it because this break's getting worse. And the bad thing really was at the time when it happened, my dad had drove home from work because he'd been told his son's been in a car accident. And he was like, he didn't know if I was dead or anything. So he drove home really fast. And I remember him driving along the path. So you've got the road where the ambulances were, then the cars parked side of the road, and then he came on the path and bolted, like drove down, got there. And after they were like, they got me and they were taking me away, they said to him, do you have a nose pipe? And he said, yeah. And they were like, well, can you just wash all this off and all the blood on the road? Oh. So I went to hospital. It must be my mum that came with me. And my dad was just there like, wash my blood down the drain. Like, I don't really know what's going on here.
That's bad, isn't it, really, if beside police? Really bad. To get your dad to do the clean-up.
Yeah, pretty bad.
Maybe that was a bad sort of budget year for them.
Yeah, could have been. And eventually, it's the longest story in the world, but eventually I got pretty bored of being on crutches as a kid. It eventually took about 42 weeks to heal the break because it was a massive gap. Yeah. And but they were amazed that it did. Again, because you cut it, there's just a huge gap now between where the bones are, and you had to do a treatment. It got infected at some point. It almost turned gangrenous at some point. So they had to look at chopping it off again, and then it didn't. But in the meantime, when I was getting really bored, I was just in the garden, like swinging my leg at a footy on the crutches. Again, I must have just not have got it.
Yeah.
And then got really bored of a wheelchair after probably a few months, and got the scooter back again. And started using that to get like to and from school and everything because I didn't want to be in a wheelchair anymore. So I'd put one leg on that and it was kind of all right, if you know what I mean. And I think really that probably helped because that it healed when they didn't think it would. And then they said, okay, well, now you're walking again, but you'll never do contact sports. You can't play footy. Your ankle's a mess, blah, blah. You have all these issues later in life.
And at that point when you got your cast off, was you still having issues? Was you limping? Was it not fully healed?
Yeah, I had to learn to walk from scratch. It was a long time.
Yeah.
About 9 months. I think it was in late August that it kind of started working. Well, it was healed on the x-ray. But I had issues for years, I suppose. The thing is now, I've had the issues for longer than I've not had them in my life. Yeah. So like I'm 19 years in since that. So you kind of just learn to get on with it really. Because for me, I always count it like I never should have had it in the first place. Yeah. So if something goes wrong next year, at least I've made the most of it. Not in a clumsy way, not trying to just break it and just do stupid stuff anymore. But I'm grateful for it. But I think from that point, bizarrely, I'd look back now and everything that I've done that I have enjoyed doing, I've had a pretty good run, has come from that. And at the time, it's the worst thing that could ever happen to your family, to you. It's all horrible, but actually it's brilliant because it kicked a lot of things off that you didn't notice at the time, but the butterfly effect.
Who would have thought as well, you laid on that road with your leg hanging off, that you'd end up doing some of the things that you have today, you know?
And what's interesting is at the time, my a lot of my family, as so I'm told by my dad, rang him and said, bin that scooter because he's going to kill himself at some point. And he was like, it's his choice. He can decide when he gets better. Yeah. And then he let me have it. And I guess that's how parenting always was, really. It was like, if I wanted to do something, go on then. I wouldn't really have like a home time when I was down Fremo till 11 at night. When I was 12, I'd just walk home to either Park Street or Trin, depending on what time, but they weren't, it's pretty free. And in that case, he could have just binned it off, and then I would have grown up probably not doing much that I now enjoy. I wouldn't even know that it existed. So grateful for a lot of things that happened the way they did. And if I could go back, I'd do it. I'd get run over again. As horrible as that sounds, there's nothing I would change about how it transpired afterwards.
Well, like you said, it didn't hurt at the time, so what's the matter if it happens again? No. But you say, you getting knocked off your scooter, you having these issues, you're getting back on the scooter, that was a pivotal point in your life. So I'd like to sort of touch on that a bit, because we spoke about this briefly the other day. Well, you sent me a voice note, didn't you? And you said, because obviously I didn't know that, my sort of understanding of yourself is you work for roller sports, action sports, and you're a bit of a travel vlogger stroke YouTuber. And then when you told me that, I didn't realise everything had stemmed from that. So I'd like to sort of get into the chronology of your life from that point.
Yeah.
For the listeners mainly, I want them to understand that there's this little boy from Grimsby who nearly lost his leg, who's out there doing these things, on a grand scale. So let's get into it.
Yeah. So I'd say, so everyone the episodes that I've heard so far are mostly from like a musical background, or Tomo's was an acting one.
Yeah.
Again, all brilliant, by the way. I've really enjoyed all of them. I am. That's not my background's action sports, which I think is another creative outlet.
Yeah.
And actually, we've got a really good community for it in Grimsby, and always have done, actually. And when you're speaking about, community centres for people in other episodes, for me, the community centre was the skate park. Mm-hmm. And again, it just all fell really well. So eventually with scootering, at the time, when I was in hospital, I could watch the X Games and stuff, which I never had at home on TV, the expensive TV. But in hospital, they had it. So I was in the hospital bed watching BMXing on the X Games, and loved it. So when I got out and I was finally on a scooter, I started trying to do like BMX stuff on it at the skate park. But scootering, as far as I knew at that point, wasn't a sport.
I think I can remember the inception of sort of scootering. I can remember my first scooter. It was a Streetline X scooter from Sports Direct. It was ace.
Nice one.
I lived on that.
Yeah.
But like I said, it was very new and fresh at that time, wasn't it? It was a huge fad, wasn't it, when they first came out?
Yeah, so again, in hindsight, what kind of happened was in the 99 and 2000 is when some people started doing it. In like America and France, it was biggest first, and Australia had a few. UK didn't really have any. I'd started riding at a very convenient point, because by the time I learned that other people did it, again, it was before social media and stuff. So it was a couple of years after riding a scooter before I saw any video of anyone else doing it. I had no idea it existed. The only reason I did it was because Alex was jumping on some curbs with it.
Yeah.
That was it. So by the time I learned that people did it, I was, by those standards, all right at it. I was at Kent Street every day. I was just doing stuff, and a lot of the skaters were better than me at it. But I was the scooter kid. And I was the first guy in the town, and one of the first people in the UK, I suppose, to really do anything with it. But again, it was just so conveniently timed with the growth of it, because the second big boom was about 2010. By that point, I'd been doing it for a few years. I was pretty good. By today's standards, I was rubbish, but back then it was starting again. And I turned professional with it in 2010, which you start getting paid to go to skate parks, and you think it's a dream, because you're just some kid that goes to, I used to get £1 every day from and when I went to Kent Street, I go to Netto. You know, it's not there anymore. It's actually a skate park
I remember.
now.
Yeah, my mum used to work in that. Can you remember you went through Netto? And there was like, it was called In Shops. There was like a card shop. There was a cafe.
I forgot about that.
My mum used to work in that cafe. It was such a Grimsby cafe. You know, they'd be serving customers and then going through like the double doors and having a fag like next to the kitchen.
Now
you
said it. Yeah, because we I mean, they might come on to this later, but we built a skate park in there. It's there now, Ghetto Park in Grimsby. It's in Netto. So yeah, actually now I'd completely forgotten about the rest of the shops. For me, it was just Netto. But thinking about the layout of the building that we've got, double doors here, I'm like, oh yeah, that was actually another shop, wasn't it?
Yeah. There was like a big walk around bazaar thing. It used to sell like dragon ornaments and all sorts.
What a bizarre memory.
No one remembers it though. It was there as long as Netto was, but no one remembers it. But every time someone brings up that complex of shops, I've got to mention it because it's you know, my mum worked there. It means a lot to me.
Well, it's in good use. It's useful nowadays. Completely different, but I'd go there with this £1 and try and make it last all day as you did, and I'd buy 9p yogurts and just eat bourbons and yogurts all day, and that's all I was doing. There's one time I went to I was at Kent Street and I tried to jump over the box and I'd landed quite like back heavy and hit the back of my head on the concrete, and I used to cut my head open all the time, so whatever. And I was at the skate park all day still, and went to Netto and I couldn't read any of the signs, and I was looking at stuff and I was like, is it strawberry or whatever? And then everyone was like, yeah, you all right? And I'm like, yeah, I'm fine. Why can't I read that?
Just badly concussed.
Got home that night, had tea, and I was like, I'm not hungry, I feel a bit sick. Oh, why? What you done? I was like, well, I banged my head earlier, but it's just, you know, it's like normal. And they were like, try eat something. And I couldn't eat anything. And I was like dozing off a bit. Went to hospital. I had a brain contusion, and they said if you fall asleep, you'll have a stroke. Ooh. So stay awake, and we'll do whatever they did. And I was laid in the hospital bed, and again I was like, that was oddly close to another test. But that's what action sports are, and it's, you know, nowadays you'd encourage everyone to wear an helmet, but it wasn't really a thing then. It was just some kid jumping about.
And you just feel this when you're younger.
Yeah, you bounce, and then one day you don't.
Yeah. I did a bit of skateboarding when I was younger. I wouldn't say I could skateboard by any stretch of the imagination, you know. Very simple ollie, kickflip, heel flip, you know, basic stuff. And then 3 or 4 years ago, my mate Daryl, it was summer, he was like, let's get some boards again. And I thought, that's such a good idea. I'd love to do that. Shit scared. Stafford.
It is Stafford.
Yeah.
I used to ride with him all the time.
Yeah, but
back in the day.
But I mean, Daryl don't care if he, you know, I shit myself, didn't dare do a thing. Honestly, couldn't do it. I was just thinking, I can't have the time off work if anything goes wrong here.
And that's one of the things. So if I go, we do a big events now, we do all the world championships and the biggest events and stuff. And now when I watch someone else, I feel like a dad. Yeah. Like I know a lot of the athletes really well, and I used to manage some of them and grew up together and stuff. I did the same things, but like I'll see a bad crash now and I can't look at it. And I used to be like, you break your arm and you're like, oh, look at this, it's dead funny. But now I'm like, I can't.
One more
I'll
run.
be sick. Yeah. Horrible. So, I turned professional with that in 2010. 2011 was a pretty big turning point because I went on a tour of America for a company called Razor, which was the main scooter brand at the time. I was sponsored by them.
And I'm right in thinking you'd not been out of the country up until this point, had you?
Been to Disneyland, Paris.
Oh, right.
Driving.
Okay. Yeah.
We never had a flight anywhere.
Yeah.
We'd never been on any never been on a plane or anything. That always seemed like something that just other people did.
Yeah.
Like at school, some people went to Tenerife or something. I was like, I wouldn't know anything about it. I don't know what the world was like.
It was the same for me. You know, I was one of 5. My parents couldn't afford to take us all abroad when I was younger. The first time I went abroad was well into my 20s. It was after I joined the army and went to Italy. That was the first time I went abroad. And I was that was 2017, you know, so not that long ago.
No, I suppose not.
No.
I've got a question for you about the army.
Go on.
Because you said in the Tomo episode, you joined it and it was disappointing.
Yeah.
And I also remember probably the last time I saw you actually was in Matrix. I don't know if you remember, it was years ago now.
No.
It must have been about 2018 or something. And because you said, I'm in the army and you've been to more war zones than I have. That was the thing you said to me at the time. And I remember it really well. And then when you said the thing in the Tomo episode about it being disappointing, I'm interested to know why. What's disappointing about it?
For me, it was just, I've got a daughter, so just time away from my daughter. I joined the army. I'd always wanted to be in the army, since a young child. It was a dream of mine. And it's one of them things I never thought I'd ever do as well, I wasn't into fitness when I was younger. I was a really skinny kid, and I had to work hard to get in the army. And then when I got in, it was just, it's a mix of, there's not a lot of funding in the army, so a lot of time was just sat around doing nothing. And that combined with being away from my daughter, it was just, I couldn't justify it,
So what do you think it was going to be when you joined?
I thought you'd be a bit busier, but I'm not kidding you when I say a normal day for us, typically, when you're in camp, would be get up in the morning, have some breakfast, do some exercise. That is it.
Oh, no bad guys.
And when you're 2 hours and 45 minutes away from home, you can't pop home and pop back the next morning. So just in that, but at the same time, I'm really glad I kind of did it and got out the other side with my marbles still, in a sense.
Yeah. Yeah, because I remember when I saw you that time, you must have just got in it, and maybe you were in that kind of slump.
Yeah.
Maybe.
Well, I started off as a reservist. I was working for Side Fire and Rescue Service, and then I became a reservist and did that for a couple of years whilst I was there, and then I went and got attached to a regular battalion. I spent 2 years with them before that was enough.
Yeah. Interesting. I just thought I wanted to pick up on it.
That's great. I'm so pleased with myself. That is a great line, that you've been to more war zones than me. It's so true. It still stands now.
Yeah, it was funny at the time. As in, honestly, even before, whenever I see your name pop up on Facebook, I remember that because that was the last time I would have seen you. And yeah, I suppose, and then we just kind of we're just separated then. It's like, okay, well, it's a good tagline.
I can't remember that. I can't remember that. But if I was in the Matrix, chances are I wasn't very cognizant at the time.
I'm impressed I remembered it.
How could you not remember that? That's a good line.
Yeah. So sorry about the side quest then.
We digressed.
2011 went to America, flew. Thought that was incredible. Felt like I was in GTA because everything is as like it is in films. Like everything's really wide pavements and low riders in Southern California and stuff. And that was a point where I was like, yeah, I'm done. Like, whatever happens now, I've had a good run. Like, I've enjoyed that. And it just kind of continued from there. Opportunities came. And again...
How long was you in America for on that tour?
Probably a couple of weeks. It was only in California.
Yeah. And what was it? Just going around different skate parks and
do
various things like that?
Promotional stuff, filming stuff, competition that we went to in Escondido, if anyone knows where that is, somewhere in Southern California. Just did some stuff. And then But basically being professional at the time, I was a professional from 2010 to 2017. It was quite a long run, actually.
Yeah.
I didn't want to survive that long. Because
just while we're at that bit, for myself and for the listeners, what does being professional mean? What is the typical day-to-day of a professional scooterist?
It's fun because you're kind of getting paid to do what you already want to do.
Yeah.
There's not much structure. There's a lot of like events you go to, trips, like overseas competitions and stuff. So you go to Europe quite a lot. I used to go on European tours quite a lot with the brand that I was with. But while you're at home, you just kind of put some stuff on Instagram. Yeah. It's more sophisticated now. But it was also, the good thing about scootering was it was at the same time with this second kind of growth period, at the same time as social media was. So scootering and like Instagram and stuff went hand in hand. So most of our stuff, apart from events and trips, was just doing some promotional stuff online. But the thing is, you'd be doing it anyway because everyone was just having a good time and filming each other. So it was a very, very comfortable thing for like a... you didn't get paid a lot, but it felt like it was enough to live on at the time because you're just paying some board at home, if you know what I mean. Your expenses are going to the skate park, and then going to, I don't know, play pool or the pub or something. Like it was no real structure. The term professional is a interesting one because you're not particularly athletic. You're in good shape, obviously, but you're just kind of doing your thing.
Yeah.
And people think you're good at it, so they want you to be doing your thing on their products, and they pay to do it. So
that's a beautiful thing, isn't it? That if you work hard enough at anything, really, you know, you can get money for it.
Yeah, and I always counted every month that happened as could have been the last one, because I was so grateful that it happened. I was grateful to even be able to ride one, or even to walk to a skate park or anything. Like, I was still all traced back to getting run over, where I was like, I shouldn't really be here. At every opportunity, every single flight I get, and I still get it now when I'm on a plane.
Yeah.
It never ever gets boring, even if it's like a Amsterdam to Humberside because you're coming from a work trip nowadays. Like, I'm still excited by planes and stuff, and it still comes back to, like, I never would have been on any of them. Yeah, I might have eventually gone on holiday as an adult, but the way it came about feels so fortunate that it all just kind of happened itself, and I was just there.
You're very lucky that you found something you genuinely love and that you're genuinely dedicated to at such a young age, because some people go through their entire life without ever finding that purpose, and for you to have found it at such a young age and then become pro and make money as a result of doing that. I've been playing guitar for years and grinding out in bands, and we make naff all,
Yeah, but if you were around at the invention of the guitar, you'd be all right, as good as you are now, if you know what I mean. So, like, for me, it was very well timed.
Yeah.
If I was starting now at the level I was in 2006, you don't exist.
Yeah.
But it was just at the right time.
The stars aligned in terms of it becoming a more popular sport, and just your love and dedication for it at the same time.
Yeah, I loved it. And 2017, end of 2016, I was about done. There was this overlap period where scootering had taught me to travel, took me to new places that I never considered going to. And then I started to enjoy the traveling more than the scootering. Like, maybe not more, but I could do the traveling without having to do an event or prepare for a competition or something. So in between scootering trips, I'd do my own trips, really low budget ones, which it still affects me today because I still do it that way. But back then it was because that was the only way I could have done it.
Yeah.
So I'd go on the internet and find the cheapest flight to a country that I've not been to yet. I go to that one. I just learn about I just wanted to go somewhere, and if it was rubbish, it's cost me 30 quid, so who cares?
Yeah.
Happen to love all of them. And there was a crossover in 2016 where I was doing a bit of both, and I started off making a long time ago like scooter travel vlogs, and then the scooter disappeared and I carried on traveling. And I was about done in 2016. I've had a good run. I've done well. I've won a couple of competitions and stuff. I've had a decent run at it, again, for something that I was lucky to be part of in the first place. And then I about to quit, and then the team that I rode for offered me to be the manager of it. Yeah. And that meant, without them knowing I was going to quit either, otherwise I wouldn't have had the chance, I don't think. And that meant I could still be a part of, with the people I love being around in the same environments and stuff, still do the trip, still work with the same athletes and whatever, but I haven't got to actually ride a scooter anymore. And all those things are what I enjoyed about it. There's a lot of people nowadays that take it seriously, and so they should. There's more money in it and big opportunities now, but they'll ride on their own and they'll practice as you should. I never did that. I'd sometimes go to the skate park on my own and I would sack it off immediately because I'm not, it was only ever a community thing really for me. So going from rider to manager didn't really change anything for me because I was, the perks of being a rider were the same as a manager because I was still doing the same stuff.
Yeah, still around it. Yeah.
And that came to an end in 2020 because action sports died like everything else because no one could go outside and go to skate parks. So a lot of brands had a lot of issues because they'd over-ordered for the year because it was on the up. And then it died, and then now you're a year behind on stock, and you've now got 10,000 units to sell. But that's already old now. Everyone knows that exists, and I've got to make a new one. And horrible and very long story, but the industry took a big hit.
The world took a big hit.
Yeah.
And honestly, just looking back, it's crazy, isn't it? Especially when you hear about some of the mismanagement and that went on around that time as well. It's just, what a crazy time, the way it's affected everybody in all walks of life.
Yeah, in terms of the mismanagement, I stopped working in that job in July 2020. I wanted to buy an house, so I went to get the quickest job I could get. So I went to a care home, worked in a care home in Newark.
Was that a bit of a culture shock from traveling the world, managing a team of professional riders to working in a care home?
I'd say it prepared me quite well. Like, there's a lot of situations you get in. I'm not going to say travel. I mean, yeah, it does teach you stuff actually, but you've been in a lot of stressful situations if you traveled on your own to certain places and you've managed to find a way out of it. And I think that helps in, I say normal situations, but a care home is not normal by any stretch. And it was also a completely different job to what I expected. Because I think for me, I was going to do 3 months. My mortgage advisor says, give me 3 months pay slips, you get an house, then do whatever self-employed stuff you want. I was like, all right, do 3 months, I'm off. Went there, and about a month into it, the care home locked down. And because I hadn't been testing yet, and everyone else had, all the residents were positive and all the staff were positive, except me, because I hadn't tested. So I was like, well, I'll stay for this 2 weeks. I mean, I've only just got here, but if you want me to, I'll stay. And the other person that was eligible to work was this girl who, her first ever job was this care home, and her first day was the day it was shut. So she hadn't tested either, and no one really told her. And she'd come to work, and I'd been there for a month and was learning the ropes still. And there's a lot of lessons you learn that you have to be comfortable with immediately about dealing with old people and people with their issues and stuff, and hygiene things that not a parent, so I'm not used to seeing a lot of stuff. And there was me and there was this girl, and we had 45 residents across 2 floors. Usually that's 6 staff.
Yeah.
And we had 2 weeks, and I probably slept about 2 hours in that 2 weeks. So it was ridiculous because the alarm goes off. A buzzer goes off in anyone's room. It's around the whole home. So you'd try and drop off, and then you'd wake up because you'd walk in and like someone's died. I know it sounds, I'm not trying to say that's an inconvenience, but I'm like, it was disaster at all fronts, really. And it was so mismanaged. Sorry, that's the point I was getting back to. Yeah. The mismanagement of the situation was horrific because someone who's never stepped foot in a care room in their life decided if all 45 residents are positive, they've all got to isolate from one another. And it makes me so mad in hindsight because dementia, they all had dementia in that home. And
where was this home?
In Newark.
Oh, I know.
I was with my brothers briefly. After my mum passed away, I moved back to my brother's, and he was in Newark, Alex's house. So I lived there for a bit. So I was in Newark for that. And dementia's brought on really quickly by not being interacted with socially. Yeah. So what happened was a lot of them, even the people that are quite independent and could eat themselves and stuff, because they're not in a communal area, they don't know it's dinner time. Fundamentally, they don't eat. Yeah. And you don't have time to do 2 floors and do all these doubles and stuff where you've got to have 2 people to move certain residents. And it was just a ridiculous decision by someone that must have never seen this in practice. Yeah. And then CQC, which is the Ofsted of care homes, they can't wait to get their mitts on the care home that's been through that, understaffed. You can't even really, it's ridiculous, but they can't wait to come and shut it down and go, oh, you failed this. And we got a really good review from CQC, one of the best ones we had in years from us too. I mean, it was brilliant. And she's aced, that girl. And
she's still there now?
Yeah, she's doing really well. My dad, I got a job there because my dad works there as a maintenance guy. Used to. And he was like, if you get a job here, they'll have you. I went and applied, they gave me a job the next day, and I was there with some, I don't know, just people who are incontinent and need a lot of help that I've never done in my life. And I was like, this is going to be a tricky 3 months. And then moved into a house in December that year, so that was in October. And then I just kept going. I just kept travelling an hour and a half each way to do the care home thing for a few months, quite enjoyed it. But that was an interesting, complete side mission. Yeah. Nothing to do with anything I've done before. It was like a grin and bear it scenario that I actually quite enjoyed. Took a lot of pride in doing it well. A lot of them are set up like conveyor belts.
Yeah.
Not doing that. So we tried to, at least with that one, give them a bit of dignity and respect that other staff or other care homes don't. But it's not playing chess and talking about the good old days, as I think you might imagine with old people. Oh, but I can't wait to hear about the war, and it's not that. It's
no. I've been in several care homes in a previous job, and not very nice places. Well, I'm yet to see a nice one, to be honest.
Yeah,
and it is really sad. I take my hat off to people who work in that industry. To be honest, it used to be a really valued industry, and it's just lost I can't think of how to describe it. You know, people who provided acute care, particularly to older people, used to be held in really high regard. And now it's a minimum wage, entry-level job. You know, it's agency work.
And they've never got to increase that.
Yeah, it's so undervalued. And that's our older generation, man. You know.
Yeah, but I don't know. I mean, there must be nice care homes out there. And if people have got family in care homes, I'm sure they're being taken good care of. The one I was in was the lowest cost one in Newark. It still cost a lot of money, something like $1,000 a week.
Yeah.
And they still weren't allowed to get TV guides for the week because they had to go into quarantine for 2 weeks before you gave them to the residents. And by that point, obviously, so what's the point?
Yeah.
So much of it was ridiculous. And there's so many decisions that just, like, so in the midst of all that, what they would do is they would send a resident from a hospital to us without testing them.
Yeah.
Things like that. We had no PPE the whole time. Which I don't want to sound terrible, but I kind of thought it didn't matter. Like, it was inevitable. You've got 45 residents, you're going to be positive. I mean, you're not going to avoid it at that point. Doesn't matter what I wear.
Yeah.
Makes it a bit quicker with, like, as long as you're physically clean. I mean, and I don't know. It was a funny period. And that was a eye-opener in terms of, like, how mismanaged a scenario can be. Yeah. That was a committee somewhere far away that decided we're going to do it this way. Let them deal with it.
Yeah, very odd time, innit? Very odd time.
5 years ago now, COVID. It's mental, that, isn't it?
It's crazy how it's just come and gone now, hasn't it, really? You know.
Came in and everyone was just dropping dead on the street on TV. And it was a bit different in reality.
When it happened, I was still in the army. So straight away, there was like, oh, yeah, you've got to go do these pop-up COVID testing sites all around the country. So we all packed our kit up, got sent out in teams. We went and picked up a brand new van with all these supplies in and everything. And then we got sent to RAF Scampton, just outside of Lincoln, and was like living out of there. And then, you know, one day we'd drive to Leicester and we'd be there all day for 2 full days. And it was just giving testing kits out and swabbing people through windows, you know, things like that. And obviously we took PPE and everything very seriously. And amongst everyone I worked with, not a single person got COVID as a result of doing them testing sites. So straight away I was kind of like, I'm going to take my chances with this, and I'm not going to get a vaccine. I'm going to hold off a bit, you know. And I've had COVID twice now, and I've been absolutely fine both times. But everyone had their own perception of it at the time, didn't they? You know, and I was like on the front line of it, so to say. And I thought I'd take my chances with this if I got it. You know. Yeah,
and anyone that is listening that did work in a care home in that period probably feels how I do, and I don't want to make this a just annoyance of COVID episode, but what was happening really aggressively during that time was that vaccine came out in, I think, like January 21. They were talking about it for a few months before, but it came out. And what they would do is they would simultaneously report excess deaths in care homes and care home staff polling on whether they would get the vaccine when it comes out. So what it would sound like is there's 30,000 excess deaths this week and there's 60% that won't take the vaccine. So it would make it sound like they're related, but they're not, because it wasn't available yet.
Yeah.
But in the same line as the NHS being applauded, and I'm sure a lot of them worked hard, but when I went to a hospital, it was empty in that time with a resident.
I went to hospital during that time as well, and it was the fastest service I've ever seen.
It's incredible, isn't it?
Yeah.
But if you think back, that wasn't the story. Anyway, I'm not trying to get into that, but they really tried to kill care home staff, which were already overworked. Not overworked. I mean, of course, overworked because it was chaos. But that was a tricky period. That was annoying. Because like for me, for example, went through that period where we've just about done well. We've kept most of them alive to a good standard. All the paperwork was in order. Skipped sleep. Ate half a bowl of Cocoa Pops a day from the kitchen. And then even before you get a choice, they're telling you you've made the wrong choice because this time people are dying. And you're like, well, that's not actually related, but you're making everyone think it is. And it's a very bizarre period.
I'm all for vaccines and that, you know, I've had every single one I've needed to throughout my life apart from the COVID vaccine. But I didn't like the idea that there was trying to mandate people to do stuff. Do you know what I mean? I don't know. I just think you've got agency over your own body. It shouldn't be down to someone, no matter what's going on in the world, it shouldn't be down to someone to tell you whether you should or shouldn't get a jab or something.
Yeah, my dad, who works in that care home as a maintenance guy, he worked that whole time, did all the clean, everything needs to be doing in that time, no PPE and everything. So he's 56 now, soon 55. So he would have been about 50 at the time. So deemed at risk. He wasn't interested. He was there to do a job and try to do everything. And he got sacked because he wouldn't take the vaccine.
Really?
So after this incredibly intense period where he did everything, it was always fine until they said it was mandatory. And a couple of months later, they made it not mandatory because the NHS refused to take it. You remember they did the thing where so many NHS staff refused to have the jab. So they said, well, we can't make it mandatory because then we've got to sack everyone.
Yeah, just boycotted it.
So he did all this, similar period, well, same period as me, all that all on his own, got sacked didn't even get thanked for his service or anything, got sacked for his efforts. And then they wanted him back when it wasn't mandatory anymore. Yeah. He was like, nope, no chance.
And he didn't go back?
Nope.
Quite rightly so as well. It's interesting. I don't know if you've been following the inauguration over in the States, but Trump said every member of the US military who got kicked out for not taking the vaccine will be given their job back and given a back pay. And I thought, think of him what you like. I thought that was a great policy, what he's already come out with.
Yeah, it's a strong move. Yeah.
And I think, especially for your veterans, it's like, I think there's no nicer gesture other than people who was absolutely screwed over by this stupid COVID policy.
Yeah.
I never thought we'd get onto COVID in this episode, mate.
Oh, but I think that was an interesting period of my life because it was a complete change of everything. Again, it taught me a lot, as every experience does. And after that was a point where I was like, okay, well, the scootering thing's kind of done now. Like, what can you do? And then I went to an event in September 2021. It was the first event after everything had stopped. I went there as a judge because I've done a lot of judging in.
And what was this event? Where was it?
A scootering event in Barcelona.
Barcelona.
It's where they always do the World Championships traditionally for most of the years anyway. And I went there, and this is another completely accidental moment that is someone's directed something here. But what happened was, I was after one of the contests, I was off to watch another one, and this crowd of people, it's a few thousand people. It's a massive event, and an Italian guy comes up to me called William. And he's like, oh, Lewis, I used to watch all your videos. Like, it's really good to meet you. And yeah, it's really nice. But I'm like, yeah, in my head, I'm like, it's a long time ago now. But yeah, good to meet you. He's like, oh, can I come sit with you? I'm like, yeah, of course you can. Watching an event. He's asking me for some advice on what to do with his national federation. He's working for an Italian federation. And I explained to him that during COVID, what I'd done is I'd set up I'd started to look at setting up a new international federation for scootering because the one that was in action, which wasn't really a federation, but it was the only one we had, so everyone got on with it. Everyone was a bit sick of it, so I looked at setting up a new one. I did all this stuff for months. I made this 55-page presentation to get some funding for one of the headline sponsors. Didn't come off, and that's when I went to the care room, and I was like, okay, well, I tried. But then, when he asked me about this, I said, well, actually, I was setting something like this up, but I was going to do this. And he said, well, that's interesting, because my bosses about to go in a meeting today about setting up a new scootering federation or becoming the governing body of scootering. It's already a set up federation. And that's World Skate, who I work for now.
Yeah.
But it happened, and he was like, do you want me to introduce you? I'm like, yeah, did. And then a few months later, I'm on the International Commission. And then a year later, I'm full-time employed as it. But none of that would have happened apart from this chance encounter. Never would have known that was going on.
Got a few of them, mate.
They would have picked. It's phenomenal, isn't it? Yeah. Even nowadays, I'm like, I'm going with the flow. Yeah. Everything could disappear tomorrow, and I'll be happy.
Good mentality, mate.
I got bitten by a dog in Albania last year, a wild one.
Yeah, rabbit.
Don't know, because you can't know unless you capture it and kill it. Apparently,
oh right.
I never knew about this.
So you can't just pop and get a test?
No, you got because it. As far as I'm aware, so in the animal, you've either got if an animal's rabid and it bites you, it will die in 10 days or something. Okay. It's like that scary movie thing. You'll die in 7 days if you watch the video too. But no, honestly, that's one thing. Or you've got to put it you've got to kill it and take a bit of its brain out to test whether it's got rabies or not.
Why don't you just do that then?
Well, because I fucking ran off.
Just bit you, mate. Did you not think to beat it to death with your scooter?
The point is, I got bitten by that, and there's possibility in theory, because rabies can take years to come on. Got treated well, and Albanian healthcare is brilliant. If anyone's interested, it's free. Got an ambulance, the police were there. It's a big deal. Pretty horrible attack, really.
Yeah.
But I made pretty decent peace with like, if I don't want to die from rabies because it's the most horrible death I think you could imagine.
I feel like you need to give us a bit more context to this story now you've touched on it. What was going on in Albania when you got bit by a dog? Was it just
there for a bit? It's a nice country, yeah.
Yeah. I mean, specifically in the build up to that dog hanging off you, what was going on? Like, was you provoking it? Or?
We're walking to dinner one night, and the season, it's in Vlora. It's a very nice part of Albania and very cheap. And we were staying there. I walked to the dogs everywhere in Albania, and they're all dead nice. And I walked past some on the beach, and it was getting dark. Walked past it, went to like the sea where it had come in to look at sunset for a sec. Turned around to come back, and this dog just jumped and stared at me, laid down, and there's a group of them back behind it. So he's probably the big daddy. But I wasn't concerned because they're all nice dogs. I'm like, whatever. I'm kind of walking past it. I'm not even looking at it. I'm not even provoking it. And then it just jumps up and starts barking. I'm like, this is a bit weird. It stood there at a distance, like where we are. It's barking at me, and I'm like, I'm gonna vacate this situation. So I start stepping back. Then it gets really angry, and it's coming towards me, and I'm like, okay, this is a bit alarming. The rest of them get up, and they're all going mental. There's about 9 of them, and I'm like, what do you do here? And then as I'm working out what I'm going to do in this situation, from start to finish, this is about 1 second. Yeah. But as in the middle of this, I'm like, don't know if you're supposed to run or not in this situation. But I'm like, this is getting a bit close. One of them bites me on the side of my knee, batters, immediately bleeding and whatever. And I'm like, right, I'm off then. So I turn to run, but it's on sand. So you just wheel spin. You don't really
just jogging on the spot.
Yeah, you don't go anywhere.
Just digging yourself a hole.
and I fell over, and I was laid on my back, and I was like, I'm dead. This is a horrible scenario to be in. There's 8 dogs, and they're all they get to it's like a film scene. They get to all around me, over me, and this old bloke shouts something. He shouts one syllable. I don't even know what he said. This old bloke that's walking past shouts something, and they sprinted. I got up and I was like, what's happened there? As in, I'm looking at my leg and bleeding loads, and I'm like, what has gone on? The restaurant owner comes over, they've seen what's happened from across the road, and they've come and got me, they've cleaned it a bit, put some iodine on it, they've rang the police, they've rang the ambulance. It's fine, go to hospital. Hospital takes great pleasure in dealing me as much pain as they can. No one speaks any English, so they're like, Lewis, it's okay. But she's digging into me with just sharp objects. And I'm I'm trusting that you're doing this for good purposes and not just because you want to see an Englishman squirm. And then, apparently I didn't have a vaccine because when I've been anywhere, the rabies vaccine just doesn't exist. It's out of stock all the time.
Yeah.
Didn't bother. I thought it was unlikely, and then it happened. And then if you're going to get treated for it, it's got to be in the first few days. Albania said they don't really have rabies anymore, so they don't have any vaccines. And then left it at that, really.
Well, fingers crossed, mate.
Yeah, anyway, I think I'll be fine. But sorry, I've quite a big
digression, but don't worry about it.
The point was, at that point, I was apart from the dying horribly bit, I've had a good run. Everything's fallen very nicely for me.
Yeah, it sounds like ours.
Again, from humble beginnings in GY and Kent Street and whatever, where I spent probably all my childhood. It just feels like everything's fallen very nicely at the right times and everything. So
that's kind of why I wanted you on, mate. Obviously, went to school together and that. I mean, I wouldn't say I really knew you at school. I knew of you and Alex, all through primary and whatnot. But then just what you've gone on to do, I found it fascinating. I've watched your YouTube videos for quite some time now. And over the past few days, I've gone back and rewatched a lot more in your most recent China videos and whatnot.
I'm sorry if you got really bored.
No, I enjoyed it. I always love your little synopsis of things that you do in your videos. I think they're really good. I was watching the Palestine one you did yesterday, and I thought for someone who doesn't just put that video on and they didn't really know anything about the history of Israel and Palestine. I thought it was really good. I thought it was really informative.
Thank you.
So touching on this most recent trip, where are we at in your life? We've got past COVID.
So that chance encounter in Barcelona happens. I end up working for the governing body of roller sports. That's first got fully employed 2023. So now I've just ended up still in scootering. And because of how many avenues I ended up on during scootering, I'm quite well equipped to work in a role like that because I've got a decent overview of the sport pretty much from the beginning, from a judging side, from competitions, from even building skate parks and being a rider. And they needed someone that was between the federation and the community to make sure everyone's interests are kept in mind. The federation is the Olympic one for skateboarding, who's responsible for skateboarding being in the Olympics.
Yeah, so
2020.
That's what I was going to say. You're trying to get it in the Summer Olympics 2028 in LA, is it? 2028?
Yeah. I checked earlier my contract. There is a confidentiality clause. I don't know how far that spreads, but yeah, our overarching goal is that we want to have more of our sports in the Olympics. Well, and scootering is the best suited for the direction that the Olympics are going. I think I'm allowed to say that.
Check after.
So
I can, edit.
So the Olympics is changed direction because this is my personal finding is that they've identified that everyone who watches the Olympics is very old because it's not a young person's thing to watch anymore because they just watch TikTok. Whereas before, it was all over TV and it was all that was on TV. So you'd get enormous numbers. But the people that now still watch it on TV are like 60, and within a generation, they're going to have no viewers anymore.
Right.
So they're trying to modernize it a bit with new sports. So from 2020 onwards, they introduced skateboarding and BMXing. In 2024, this year, when we were there in Paris for the skateboarding one, and it was brilliant. They introduced breakdancing, which was hilarious, but that. It's a complicated thing getting a sport in the Olympics, but there's different ways you can do it, and that. My guess is that was never going to last. That was only going to be a one-time thing.
Okay.
But they're trying to bring in more young people to the Olympics and also more kind of accessible and sustainable sports, to use a couple of buzzwords, where like they like swimming is popular and it's pretty good to watch, I suppose. Don't really know any swimmers, and I don't know anyone that competitively swims.
No.
Right? So, like, it's a thing, but I think they're trying to tap into more widely participated sports, which happen to be urban sports at the minute. I mean, skateboarding and scootering and BMXing, you can do it anywhere you want. You find a curb.
You'd like to think the Olympics would be a reflection of the most popular sports in the world at that time, wouldn't you?
Yeah, but it's quite a long-winded process, so I imagine there's a delay to that. Yeah. So, our federation manages all the roller sports, so anything with skating-sized wheels. So rollerblading's one of them, but loads of like other sports like speed skating, even artistic rollerblading, rink hockey and roller hockey, stuff like that. There's loads of them, but the urban side, I deal a lot with scootering just from my experience. I would say it's got a lot of potential, because it's, for me, they already have the facilities for skateboarding. They built it.
Yeah.
We'd use the same facilities, zero cost to add it into. Whereas everything else, even breakdancing, you've got to build a platform and a new seating area, new TV camera positions. For me, that would be a good thing to achieve.
You're just changing the athlete, basically, aren't you?
Yeah,
yeah.
Even the athletes, judges, MCs.
So, how long of a process is it typically? Can you give an example of, say breakdancing, for example? Do you understand of how long of a process that's been from somebody saying this should be in the Olympics to actually featuring as a sport?
Well, there's two ways a sport gets in. One is the Olympics, the Olympic Program Committee, the OPC, saying these are the sports in the Olympics. So if you want to host it in 2032, like Brisbane, you've got to include these sports. There you go. But there's often a few spots available for what the local Olympic Committee wants to include. So then you get choices. I think LA 28 has announced like cricket, flag football, a few others. but that's the Olympics have announced it, but through what's relevant to that country, there might be a very specific sport. I mean, for me, it's a funny one because cricket is the least American thing in the world, but they want cricket for that one. And the breakdancing, for example, would have been one of France's because France is really strong in breakdancing. Yeah. Whereas other sports like BMXing got in. It's all about the governing body. So the governing body of BMXing is called UCI. They also do all the track cycling, all cycling through UCI. So you can get in. UCI has got a big athlete quota, which means between all the sports, they can have a lot of athletes. Not sure how much freedom they have in this, but they probably can reallocate that if they want to bring in a new discipline under their same governing body, because it's not a new relationship, let's say. So if they want to take 20 people from this and put it in BMXing now, that's a bit easier than being a brand new governing body trying to get in. But BMXing found out really late before the Olympics. It was maybe 18 months before 2020, I think. Quite a late move. Whereas other sports like skateboarding would have had more time because it was the first sport of this governing body, World Skate. Yeah. So scootering, for example, we've been trying for a few years. Again, I'm not sure. I don't even know how much I can say about it. We're trying for a few years. I'm confident on a personal level that it will be in the Olympics at some point. I feel like it, just as a spectator of the sport and a past athlete of the sport, not to do with my current role, it seems perfectly fitting because of the sustainability aspect. And everyone from 3 years old to 70 years old has used a scooter at some point for any use. Doesn't matter if it's getting to work on it or whatever, or kids riding to school on it. Everyone's had the hands-on experience, and I feel like it's a really accessible sport, more so than even skateboarding and BMXing, because BMXing, you've got to be a certain size to be able to do it. Skateboarding is just incredibly hard to get in. It's such a high...
And like you said earlier, you can scooter anywhere. You know, you can ride a BMX anywhere, but you're limited as to where you can actually develop and become, proficient on a BMX. You need a bit more than a scooter, don't you?
A bit more strength for BMX, yeah. Anyways, I think they're all brilliant. I've grown up in action sport. I think they're all ace. I still watch BMX and skateboarding religiously. Like, they're incredible sports. But if they're in, it seems like it's lower cost to add this one.
Yeah.
It's not just about cost. There's loads of factors. And actually, it's quite a fascinating thing to work in because you learn about how much goes into it in the background. It's not just about being sustainable or being accessible or anything. It's about a lot more like general. I think the fundamental thing is it has to be excellent, which, I mean, breakdancing might have been. I only actually saw the famously bad clip.
Yeah.
It might have been brilliant otherwise, but that was so overshadowed, wasn't it? So I've got no idea if it was any good or not.
Breakdancers are superhuman, some of their abilities. It's unbelievable. It defies physics, what some of them are able to do. So I couldn't understand how that'd make it in. But same with the scootering, with any sort of action sports, it's so fascinating to watch, even if you're not into it. Like, why would they not want that in the Olympics? It makes perfect sense if they're trying to pull in a younger demographic, or even just a demographic of people that they've not currently tapped into.
And scootering's a perfect hybrid of the two, really. Like, in you get a lot of flips and stuff in scootering that you don't get in skateboarding, like body flips. And skateboarding is really technical, where again it's incredible to watch as long as you know what you're watching, if that makes sense. Like, it looks like someone's done a flip trick into a rail. There's no reason why they think that one's 10 times harder than another one.
Yeah.
It is, because I know what it is. But like, a random person might not understand it. Scootering does a lot of flips, and everyone likes flips. And I got one of my friends who I go to some events with. We go to some skateboarding events together, just again as fans. He's growing up loving skateboarding, and he'll go to him and he'll love him. And then I said to him, "Come to a scootering one, see what you think." He went to a scootering one just after it, and he was like, "That's the best thing I've ever seen."
Yeah.
And he's never seen anything about scootering, don't know what it is, but it's phenomenal because it's such a spectacle. There's a lot more going on. For example, in a 45-second run, you'll do twice as many tricks on a scooter than a skateboard. It's fundamental. It's not because it's easier or harder. It's just that skateboarding is a lot more precise for setting up for stuff. Your feet have got to be millimeter perfect, whereas on a scooter you can do tricks into other tricks on the way to somewhere else. So you're in a bit more bit more control naturally, so you can add more to it. I'm not necessarily saying one's easier than the other, but the entry level, even to roll on a skateboard, is harder than on a scooter.
Yeah.
But it means you can then do more with the scooter, if that makes sense, because that's automatic.
Yeah, I think connecting your hands and your feet with the scooter, it just gives you. I think everyone can innately ride a scooter, can't they? But like you said, not everyone can balance on a board.
And a lot of people walk past the skate park. Let's say you're pretty old, you walk past the skate park and some guy's skateboarding. He's doing something incredible, but he looks like he's a grebo with baggy trousers on. He can't be that hard, can it? If he can do it, like there's a bit of a perception, I think, of that. There shouldn't be, because it is incredibly difficult. I tried to skate for a few years and I felt daft because I thought I'd spent 15 years building my motor skills, and I got on a skateboard and I was like, this is completely different. I don't think I would have got that good on a skateboard. But again, you just get like, if you're someone who likes sports, you'll try a few of them and you'll settle on one. Like some people are just naturally more inclined to one than the other, I think.
Who are some of the big names in scootering at the minute? It's not a sport I'm really familiar with at all, mate, but I do want to go check some out if you can recommend some for me.
Most famous one's Ryan Williams.
Williams.
Famous because he was phenomenally good at scootering, but when competitions and stuff were still kind of smaller scale, but BMXing was bigger, he can do every sport in the world. He's an incredible athlete. But he started entering X Games and BMX competitions and winning them all. And that was an interesting point because everyone thought scootering was the easier version of BMX. But then a few scootering athletes, so at the Olympics in 2020, the woman that won gold in BMX was a scooter rider a few years before. Guy that won silver, Brandon Lupos, he was a scooter rider before. Ryan Williams is winning every X Games on a BMX, but they're all scooter riders. But because the avenue wasn't there, they were like, just do BMXing then. Yeah. And they made everyone look a little bit silly because for years they thought that was the easier one. He's a big one. Jordan Clark is a UK rider that's won, I think, 6 world championships now. Incredible athlete. Good footy player as well, actually. Yeah. But again, good at everything. He does similar things. He'll jump on a mountain bike and win the biggest contest of the year and then go back to scootering again because he's just got the skills in mind.
Straight up athletes, mate. Yeah.
Nowadays my role is to do that. We govern the sport in terms of we do all the regulations for it worldwide, which is the guidance we give to national federations, to small competitions, but we also host the Pro Tour, which is an elite level competition tour where you do 5 or 6 events a year, the World Championships, do the Olympics when that comes around for skateboarding and stuff. So
the job you're in, you couldn't physically be any more involved in the world of scootering than you are.
No, and
you're completely embedded in it, aren't you?
Yeah, I'd say I'm in a incredibly specific position with the job itself. There is one of in the world, and that I don't know how to say this and not sound like a knob. I don't think there's anyone who's had the fortune to have such broad experience in the sport that could do it as one person worldwide. I mean, I've been very fortunate, and when I was eating yogurts by the gallon at Netto, it's a bizarre thing to think about, but I've just done a bit of everything in the sport. So they want one person to reference for any part of the world. It could be India or anywhere. I know a lot of really good people that can help with it. And we do rely on, it's like a volunteering team of technical commission. So we have people that represent continents and stuff on a voluntary basis, but we tap into their knowledge a lot. But yeah, it's a very specific job. I could not write a job description more exact to my skill set than this one.
Yeah.
It's a very, very, very niche thing to be in.
It sounds it, mate.
in quite a responsible position, it turns out.
The other day when we started chatting about getting this episode going, I was like, very ambiguous. What do you actually do? He was like, fair play, to be honest.
It's funny actually because I do deliberately keep them separate. Before we started this, I mentioned that I have 2 very separate timelines that happen simultaneously all the time, but I keep them apart. Like the travel stuff, if I go to Iraq or something, that is nothing to do with my job. But then my job, I'll do a lot of traveling stuff as well. It all boils down to exactly the same point when I was 11, because without scootering, I wouldn't have traveled. And and without growing up in the very, I mean, you change anything. It's the butterfly effect, isn't it? Change one day at school, I'd have been in a completely different job. Yeah. Maybe I'd be working in Netto if it was still there. You never know.
Just never know, mate.
Yeah. So
I've just realised.
I do keep my...
Sorry, go on.
What?
I just thought then, because you brought up Netto again, and I was watching one of your videos in the past couple of days, and you was like, I can't remember where you was. Can't remember where you were. You might have been in Aleppo.
No, the Netto jumper was in Bethlehem.
Oh yeah, yeah. You're at the birthplace of Jesus, and you're like, I think I might be the only person who's been here in a Netto jumper. Yeah,
it is. It was a good artifact, that jumper. I
just thought this has been a This has been a Netto heavy episode, hasn't it? So far.
Get them in. They still exist in other countries, just not here.
Yeah,
I went to Denmark recently, and they're everywhere. So we can get a sponsor in. Yeah. So yeah, you're right about. It's ambiguous to most people that know me. I don't especially always talk about it. Like, I'm happy with the job. I'm really proud of it, and I would bore anyone to death with it because it's fascinating to me. I love every aspect of it, but I don't want it to sound like it's really important. Like it is, but I don't want that to be the point of it. If you know what I mean. Yeah, I enjoy it. It happens to be a very important job, but
yeah. I mean, it's a very humble outlook to have on it, you know. And like you said, you've had some luck, mate. You really have had some luck. If you believe in it or not, I don't know, but it sounds like your life has been a succession of the right place at the right time, and it's all led to this where you are today. Yeah. And you're really lucky, mate, because some people go, like I said, throughout their entire life without a purpose.
Yeah, 100%.
I'm in my 30s. I still don't really know what I want to do. Do you know what I mean?
It's just not slapped you in the face yet.
It's just, I like doing a bit of everything. Do you know?
But I think if someone said to me as a teenager, even as a rider or a professional, said at some point you'll be towards the top of this kind of triangle, I, one, wouldn't have believed him, and two, it would have ruined it, wouldn't it? Like, it wouldn't happen naturally. So you would have think, I've got to work towards this. It's just fallen well, and when opportunities have come, I've made the most of them. I'd like to think is what it is as well, but definitely right time, right place in a lot of scenarios. But again, I'm also of the mind that, like, if it hadn't happened at the right time, right place, I'd still be quite happy. Even after the first year going on that trip to America and then doing other competitions everywhere else, done. I'm happy. Like, it's phenomenal. Being able to walk again, happy.
Yeah.
Everything's a bonus from that point.
Yeah.
I used to have this really bizarre, I wouldn't say vision, I'd say like maybe almost a fantasy where, like, what if I wake up from surgery one day and I had a really weird dream where I was 30 and I was working in this thing, and you rub your eyes and go, oh, never mind. Anyway, how's my leg?
Yeah.
I was wondering if that was going to happen. At
Scooters never existed.
Yeah. You're talking about it's 1750. Yeah. So yeah, fortunate, but yeah. So I do keep them both separate, and also I think it's important to keep them separate in professional settings, let's say.
Well, even though your job does sound quite fun and it takes you places, at the end of the day, it's still your job, isn't it?
Yeah, and you want to make sure when you're making a point about something, it's clear that it's not to do with the other thing.
Yeah.
Not really. I'm not going to get sacked for it. Or it's just separating stuff, and like I said, I'm lucky that I absolutely adore my job. But I love this, and they work well as two separate things.
It seems like you have a morbid curiosity towards dangerous places. Am I correct in saying that?
I think you're right that it looks like that. Yeah. And I'm always a little bit conscious about that. But I think I mentioned to you before that the Telegraph, who Tomo criticised, they've written a couple of things, actually. One was about my trip to Iraq, and it was... I wanted them to write it because I went and had a really good time, and I wanted it to come across as the world's not that scary, everyone's quite nice, and the world's a nice place to be. And it just got loads of comments and everyone thinking I was an idiot. Oh, I'd be worried sick if I was his parents, or like, what an idiot, what does he expect, blah, blah, blah. That was a shame. But I think over time, while it looks like going to a place like Iraq or Syria or Mauritania, places that people don't normally go, it maybe looks like he's picking them. What's the most dangerous one you can actually go to? And absolutely not that. It's just that as you travel to a certain type of place, which has a bad rep, you kind of get more comfortable with it. And over time, I've just learned that it's probably got a lot to do with being from here.
Yeah.
I mean, we have a lot of similar bad rep, but it's not that bad.
Yeah.
And if you don't just start off going to, I went to France with my family, I'll go to Syria next. You end up going to, like, let's say Southeast Europe, and then maybe into Turkey, and then the southeast bit of Turkey, which is supposedly on fire all the time. Yeah. You go to Israel, and that turns out to be really nice. You go to Palestine, everyone's really friendly. Jordan, and you start to learn as that goes on that it's really not what it sounds like. So it's not a case of like looking for trouble, which I think it could come across as. It's more this feeling that is incredibly nice to feel. You learn the world's not that bad. So you don't look at bad storylines and then go and see what it's like, if it's any good or not. You just ignore all of them. And you look at like Iraq, which is where civilization began. Iraq and Syria, modern day, so Mesopotamia and whatever. It's where civilization began. It's where humans that existed for 190,000 years before this as hunter-gatherers, because we moved around all the time because we had to go pick some more plants. Mm-hmm. After 190,000 years, someone left their wheat outside and they learned that it regrows. So for so long, we thought we had to just keep moving. And it was there that they say civilization began, because that's the first time we realised you could plant stuff. Yeah. It's a phenomenally long time to not know that, innit, if you think about it.
Yeah, and the oldest known site on Earth is Göbekli Tepe, which is in Turkey.
Yeah, so that whole area is fascinating. So there's loads of history there. It's tarnished the area by... when we're growing up, you hear about Iraq in the early 2000s, there's Saddam, it's all...
Yeah, you just think of the first Gulf War, second Gulf War.
But you learn to ignore that aspect in the most sensible possible way. If everyone's getting taken hostage, you might not bother. But like, I don't know, there's loads of examples where like you'll be somewhere, the news you are reading at that moment in time tells you what's happening where you are, and it isn't happening.
Yeah.
And so you end up with this, you feel quite free with it. You just kind of trust people. It's like we have a perception of Iraq or Syria as being terrible because that's what we've had for the past 10 years in Iraq and 10 years in Syria, 20 years of Iraq. But that's because the very few news stories we get, which aren't many, they're all negative, and there's no positive one to balance it. Yeah. So you got to think of somewhere like Japan, right? Everyone loves Japan. It's brilliant. It's really advanced, everything. But they do have earthquakes. They have plane crashes. When I was there over New Year, on New Year's Day, there was an earthquake and a tsunami, and the next day, 2 planes hit each other on the runway and killed loads of people. Right? Awful, right? All in Tokyo.
Happy New Year.
Horrific, right? But like that happens, and it is terrible news, but it's balanced out by the fact that everyone likes Japan. So it's bad news temporarily, but it doesn't, let's say, stay in it and you think, oh, well, they can't fly planes properly in Japan. You think it's a horrible accident and you move on because you know someone that's been, or you've been, or it's on TV. Whereas the Middle East especially, you only get a few negative stories. There's never positive news. And negative news travels a lot quicker and further because it's always about extremes, isn't it? Yeah. There's no reason you want to see a news report from 5,000 miles away unless it's something extreme.
Yeah. Unless you want to click it.
You don't get extremely good news. It doesn't exist because good news is everything's all right. It's very flat, isn't it?
Yeah.
But like a bombing happening or something, I mean, you look at...
Assad being taken down.
Yeah. You look at terror attacks in France, Germany, London. They exist. They happen. You just forget about them 2 days later. But if you had only ever heard 3 of them in the past 10 years from one place, that would be 100% negative rate. You know what I mean?
And I think there's a lot of people are ignorant that other cultures that aren't living this modernized way of living like we do in the West, somehow they live in some sort of inferior existence.
Yep.
I think that simplistic existence is much more attractive than what we live, to be honest.
Yeah.
You know?
I mean, I like both for different things, I suppose. I don't like a lot of Western major cities because they're just a bit horrible.
Yeah, I used to fantasize over cities. Like when I was younger, I really wanted to move to one, you know. I used to get a buzz about going down to London and things like that, and I can't stand them now. I really can't stand them. Just a melting pot of people.
Yeah. And no one cares about each other because they're all passing through.
People are an inconvenience. Yeah, people are an inconvenience.
And I mean, that's the grass is greener thing, innit? But it's greener where you water it. So, like, if you take a lot of pride in where you're from in Grimsby, or you're looking at somewhere positively, something I find about Grimsby is if you start to look at it the same way you look at a holiday destination, you Google what to do in Grimsby, which no one ever does because you're used to the same 3 places, but you never Google it. If you did, or what cafes are around, you'd find like this one, but you don't because you're just used to it. Whereas if you get to Prague for a weekend, your first thing you do is what to do in Prague, or cool facts about Prague. You do it about Grimsby, you'll find loads, but you just don't search it because you think it can't be that interesting because I'm from here, I know what it's like. Yeah. And so I think going to places like Iraq, and I really like it there, Iraq's quite similar to Grimsby in the aspect's a bit different, and in the most positive possible way, as in Iraq's brilliant but gets bad rep. Grimsby's brilliant if you do the right things and you know the right people. There's loads of good people about, gets a bad rep. So you mentioned in previous episodes about how deprived a lot of Grimsby is. I think it's the highest unemployment rate in the UK now. It all sounds like it must be turmoil and riots and people getting mugged everywhere. If you're not from here, that's what you think, because the statistics tell me everyone's desperate and starving and doing everything unthinkable. Same thing about like the Middle East, for example. Again, bigger scale, but there's basically what I've learned over time is there's different layers of the world. There's like a political layer, like a cloud that exists over everywhere. And there's the actual ground level where people live actual day-to-day lives. And so in Syria, let's say I went in 2020, which I thought was after the civil war. It turns out it was in the middle of. But it was nice when I was there. Some stuff's going on. It's not sunshine and rainbows. Neither's here. I don't think anywhere is. But there's this cloud that exists that you think, because let's say, I don't know, Russia and America are arguing about something, that Russians must all be horrible.
Yeah.
And I can't work out how that happens. I can't work out how someone thinks that, because you go there, they also don't care. They're waking up, they're going to work, they're feeding their family, like everywhere in the world. Yeah. In between that, they're going to watch some footy. What people are not doing almost anywhere in the world is waking up, sharpening their knives and going, who am I going to have today?
Yeah.
And I don't understand how we got to a point where people think that happens.
Just narrative, isn't it? If you control the narrative, you control discourse, don't you?
People must think about Grimsby from, let's say, London. With some posh bit of London, they must hear Grimsby and go, oh, they just wake up and have a fight.
Yeah.
That's what it sounds like.
Yeah.
And I think that a parallel between those kind of places that I enjoy going to is probably quite ingrained in growing up in Grimsby, where it's a bit of an underdog story in a way, but also it's not as you read about it.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? So you eventually start going to some of them and they're stunning in their own right. It's not because they're rubbish that I want to go, or they sound rubbish and I want to see what it's like. It's because there are so many positive qualities about any of those places: the history, the architecture, the culture. I love the Islamic culture. It's all brilliant. And when you see through this cloud, you ignore what it's being written about it, it's still objectively as fascinating as it always has been. 10 years ago or 15 years ago, Syria was a quite popular tourist destination, a bit like Jordan is now, because it's interesting. It's still interesting. Like, it doesn't matter if some guys had to run away. I mean, there are issues in those countries, like there are issues here, but it's not always exactly what you read. Yeah. And that's why I enjoy going to places like that, I suppose.
So of all these different places you've been to, have you ever been in a situation where you have, I suppose, other than the dog incident in Albania, have you ever been in a position where you have felt truly unsafe? Or for the most part, has it been quite a welcoming experience? Or has there been times, particularly I'm thinking more towards Afghanistan, Iraq, Syria, when you've been to these places, have you ever felt, shit, what have I done this for?
Yeah, a couple of times. When I first went to Iraq the first time, 2017, I was in Turkey at the time. And I was in southeast Turkey, and I was planning to be in Turkey. And flights were banned in and out of Iraq because of the civil war that was kicking off at the time. And the northeast bit's Kurdish and the rest of it's Arab, and they don't like each other, so they always kick off. So flights were banned, and I never considered going. And then I saw a bus in one of these like travel shops in Turkey, and it said Silopi, which I knew from looking at maps for far too long that's the border town between Turkey and Iraq. So I asked about the bus, and they said, "Yeah, when do you want to go?" Oh, I don't know, tomorrow. Because I was thinking, if they don't want to let me in, they'll just say no.
Yeah.
I'm not going to be in jail. They're just going to go, no, mate, turn around. But okay. Anyway, I got the bus there, all quite last minute, because I had a certain amount of time off work at the time. So I was like, well, I'll make a move and I'll go have a look. Got to Silopi, go to the border. The bus journey is quite eye-opening, because at the time, 2017, Syria was not in a good position. It was across the border with Syria, the last bit of this journey. If you look at the map, and got to the border, I just walked up to the border, and in hindsight, it was a really surreal thing where I walked up to the border and they were like, you need to be in a car, you can't walk on foot. Oh, okay, but no other problems? Nope. No visa fee? Nope. Okay, so waited. Asked someone if I could get in a car with them. There's a lot of people waiting there to try and leave Turkey at that time. So there's a lot of families, a lot of people crying and stuff. I don't really know what was going on. Got in this guy's car, went across the border, took hours. But got to Zaho, which is a northern town in Iraq, across the border, and didn't have anything. Like, I didn't have any Iraqi money. There's no ATMs in northeast Iraq. In fact, there was one, and that's in a huge area. There's only one that I found. So I had no money with me, none of that. I had no phone service, no hotel booking or anything. And I got there and I was like, what have I done here? 10 at night. People are looking at you a bit weird because they must not get a lot of Westerners at that time.
Yeah.
I was walking around and I was like, I've overlooked a lot of things here. Like, I don't really know what the plan is now because I can't get money out. Someone could send me and I can't get it. Yeah. So I can't get a hotel, I can't do anything. I went to a shop. I had some Turkish money still. In fact, I had a decent wad of Turkish money because I was going to be in Turkey for a while. Went to a shop and I was like, can I pay with this? He went, yeah. Oh, okay. Can I change it? He went, yep. And he turned around and he opened this vault, like half the size of this wall, just full of Iraqi notes, Iraqi dinar. And it turns out all the shops over there have just vaults of cash because they don't use ATMs or anything. So I changed all my Turkish money, and then he gave me Iraqi money. I went to a hotel, woke up the next day, and it was the Kurdish Independence Day, it turned out. So I got there at one of the most politically important days in recent history in Kurdistan. After that, it was stunning. Yeah. But that first bit, I was like, I've missed I've not thought about this.
It takes some nuts, mate. Just thinking, there's some buses going to to the border of Iraq. Let's see if I can jump on one. Yeah, and then doing it with no plan, no execution. But that's a common theme with some of your videos, isn't it? Like, I'm sure, obviously, when I've been looking at your catalogue the past few days, but I'm sure it's featured a couple of times. Like, kind of doing this on no real planning. I'm just sort of here now. Yeah. And but I guess that's the best way, innit? You get the most organic sort of experience of the place, no preconceptions.
I enjoy it. I don't search anything about a place before I go. Even if I go somewhere in Europe, I'll very rarely check anything because I like to feel like I'm making my own mind up about it. I think it sounds like, I don't know what the modern term, it sounds like you're trying to make a dramatic point by just getting a random bus to Iraq. But you think about it practically, what's the worst that's going to happen? Yeah. Like in the real world, not in a film where they're going to put you in jail and torture you or something. They're just going to go, no. Yeah. And you're going to go, okay, I'll get a bus back. Do you know what I mean? Realistically, nothing can really happen there.
Yeah.
And briefly, there's another one that I always find really important, was when I was in Mauritania, which no one's ever heard of. It's in West Africa. It's just south of Morocco.
Yeah, there's a place in Mauritania called the Rakat structure.
And the big eye, isn't the eye of the Sahara.
So interesting, isn't it? Yeah, and it's, people have alluded to the fact that might be, well, it fits some descriptions of Atlantis that was found in Egyptian text. No one bloody knows the place, do they? Nope. But it might possibly house one of the most significant sort of archaeological sites ever.
Yeah.
But sorry, mate, to interrupt, but
right. It's someone's heard of it.
It's not many people have, but no, it's an interesting place.
I only found out last week that it's one of the least visited countries in the world, Mauritania. Only beaten by countries that don't even let you in, like North Korea or somewhere. Yeah. But I went there a few years ago. So I was just traveling down. Can I get into Mauritania? Yeah, nice one. And there's one day in particular that my partner, Georgie, she was off to go see one of her mates in London. And I was in Nouakchott, the capital of Mauritania. Mauritania is, I'm going to avoid going into a long version of this, but it's a very problematic country. There's a lot of slavery. There's a lot of people that are just stuck there because they've travelled country to country to get into Morocco to try and get traffic to Europe. Yeah. So Mauritania companies know that and they don't pay anyone, and now they can't go backwards or forwards. So you end up with a horrible social scenario, and I think it's the highest slavery rate in the world, but no one knows they're a slave. It's very uncomfortable. It's very, really bizarre. Yeah. They're all just waiting to get paid. It's been 4 months. I'll get paid next month and I'm going to move. And you're like, I don't think you are. But you can't do anything about it. Anyway, because of that, you have a lot of slums and a lot of horrible living conditions. And there's a district in Nouakchott called Sankiem district, which is probably the worst part of the worst city in the worst country for this in West Africa. Yeah. Compounded into a bit where you're like, this is a place where no one should ever go. And I met someone while I was walking around one day. He came and spoke to me, spoke some English, and he said, come to my house later. I said, okay, give me a number. And I was about to go to his house, and I spoke to Georgie, and she was in London. And she said she got off, she was meeting a mate, and they were going to go to this cafe, but they can't because the road's closed because someone's been stabbed. So they've gone over this one, and it's really nice or whatever. And I was like, if you heard what you've just said, that's normal. Yeah. You're telling me that's normal. If I rang you and said, oh yeah, I'm in this city, someone's been stabbed, everyone thinks I'm going to die. But again, because it's London, it gets this weird pass. You don't like London, I don't like London. Yeah. And I don't understand where it comes from. Whereas in Mauritania, the last incident with a tourist was, 8 years ago. Yeah. And it turns out people think he was a spy in a way. And it's all, again, very weird. But it's uncommon, but no one goes. So you hear one story, that's in your memory forever because there's nothing to dilute it with positiveness. Yeah. But that was a moment where I was like, going to Sankiem, it was a bit sketchy. And when you get there, you're like, I'm not sure what I've done here. And I went to go watch football, this Gambian guy's house, which was like a concrete square. You couldn't even stand up in it. It was a carpet in there, that was it. No bed or anything. Yeah. He had a really old-looking TV in a hut down the street where some Gambian people lived. Watched footy. It was AFCON. It was Gambia versus Algeria or something a few years ago. And it was brilliant. And I came home. And I was like, well, I didn't have to go anywhere because someone got stabbed. Yeah. So they always work out all right because people are just doing the same stuff everywhere. No one can be asked to kidnap someone. I can't imagine ever thinking I'm going to kidnap. Seems like a lot of paperwork, doesn't it?
I always had this bit of guard up when choosing where to go, places on holiday. And I thought, I'm not going there, not going there. I had a lot of preconceptions. And then, was this last year before? My partner's, one of her best friends, she's from Latvia, and she was getting married in Latvia to an English guy. And they said, do you want to come? And I was like, I'd never planned to go to Latvia in my life. Do you know what I mean? And I went, and the best holiday I've ever had.
Latvia's ace, isn't it?
Unbelievable, mate. Unbelievable. I went with no preconceptions. I thought it's not going to be very nice, and I know that's quite horrible of me to say, but like you said, you did never hear of redeeming qualities about these places, do you?
No.
But yeah, completely taken back by the place. Beautiful. Riga, beautiful capital city. Probably one of the nicest capital cities I've been to because there's no people.
That northeast trip's really nice. You go Latvia, Lithuania, Latvia, Estonia.
Yeah, the Baltics. Yeah,
unbelievable. I nearly moved to Estonia
a long
time ago. It's the only place I've ever considered moving to. Grimsby, even within the country or anywhere worldwide, Tallinn was the only place I've ever thought about moving to. It's brilliant.
Yeah. There's high-speed rail network linking the Baltic states.
What is that? Back in a few years ago with buses. That's quite new.
It's nearly completed. So when we was there, the work was underway. It was,
ace.
But yeah, linking all three. But when we was there, there was quite a few Latvians with English partners, we was over there with. And one day, our friends Xander and Richard, they said, do you want to go to the beach tomorrow? And we was like, what? And they said, yeah, we'll take you to the beach. It's not far out from Riga. So we was like, oh yeah, right then. So we met at the station, we all jumped on this old Soviet train, quite a rickety train, to be honest. It wasn't modern at all. Then we got to this place called Yermala on the Baltic Sea, and it was like Beverly Hills. Could not believe it. It was gorgeous. But I think I'm going to go back to Latvia for sure.
Do you find that when you get there, you look at it and you go, well, of course it's nice, it's a beach? you know what I mean? You've gone there and you've gone, well, why would I think otherwise? It's a nice bit of sea, it's a beach, and it's nice weather. Why would it be anything other than very nice?
No, but there's going to the beach, then there's going to somewhere like Yermala. Like, it was swanky. It was next level. Apparently
bougie.
Yeah, apparently a lot of the Russian oligarchs have their holiday homes there. It was unbelievable, mate. I'm not kidding.
Good.
I've never been to Beverly Hills, but I imagine it was something akin to Beverly Hills.
Yeah, good. And the reason I make YouTube videos and stuff, there's two reasons really. One is to be a bit of that positive news of, again, not look at me, look how hard I am. I've walked across a border, but look, it's just walking across a border. Like, if you want to go, you can just go and it's fine. And the second thing is because my parents always thought I was going to die. So I made videos to show them. So like my dad watches them all the time.
Yeah.
And if I've been, like when I was in China for a while and hadn't released one for a few days, he was like, where's your video? I want to know what it's like.
Yeah.
He's not asked about traveling, but he wants to know that it started off as me going to like, Palestine and going, yeah, it's all right. But yeah, I think there's not enough positive news about it in the place. Same with Grimsby. But it is day-to-day stuff in Grimsby, I would say, is largely unaffected by what it sounds like is happening. And I think that's a similar theme in most of the world.
Yeah. Like I said, it's just, tabloids only publish something that shocks people in a sense, won't they?
Yeah, and that's fine. They're going to do that forever. They've always done it and they will. I'm just, for people reading it, should not take it as fact, that's all. When I was in Aleppo, my dad told me I've got to leave because they're dropping airstrikes that day. And I got that message while I was walking through the central square of Aleppo, walking to a footy match because the footy league's still on because everything's normal. Walking to watch Al Ittihad Aleppo, blue skies, stunning day. Met some random guy and said, I want to go watch the footy today. He went, I'll take you. Good. Okay, went there. Cost me 60p for a ticket. Watched footy. Everyone's having a good time. You walk home. You get home. Twitter's full of every major world leader saying we publicly condemn Syria's attacks today in this part of the blah blah, and I'm like, it just didn't happen. It did not happen.
Well, like literally exactly where you were. Yeah, it was proclaiming that it was happening in Aleppo.
Not far away in Idlib. Yeah,
I mean,
and also in Aleppo, Aleppo is as broken as it looks. 70% livable. The rest of the country is stunning. Damascus never fell, as far as I'm aware. Like it, stunning place. There's a bit more heightened security, so there should be. But when I was going around places, I had someone driving me, and there's certain bits you can't go to because it was an ISIS stronghold at some point. Yeah. One place called Palmyra in the desert. It's miles out. You can't really go there because they've not fully cleared it yet or whatever. So they didn't let anyone go. And one of these checkpoints, one of the soldiers was like, "Yeah, you can't go that far." And then one of the generals of the army got in the car and said, "We're going." Every checkpoint let us through. He's like, "I want you to see it. It's beautiful." Got in there, was with him all day. The news turned up because some Westerner was visiting, so someone interviewed him on the news or whatever. Yeah. But the general was having the best day of his life. He was like, "That's where me and these people, we got those guys, whatever. We had dinner together, drove back, went back to Damascus. Stunning." Like, again, it's not sunshine and rainbows, but the security, as much as you might see it and think, well, that means I'm going to die, it's completely the opposite. People can shoot 50 civilians in Germany and they won't scan your bag in the shopping centre.
Yeah.
In the Middle East, something happens, they defend against it next time. Paris, they'll have something happen in public. They won't have any more measures in place. They won't have bag scanners or they won't have metal detectors or anything. It just could happen again, couldn't it? Over there, they take it quite seriously.
So with all these countries you've been to and these different cultures, what's the biggest takeaway? Is there any one takeaway in particular that you think us over here in the West could probably use to better ourselves?
I think with the negative news thing is something we should pack in, like buying into it. I mean, it's always going to be there, but the world's all right everywhere. People are mostly about the same everywhere. Yeah. They might believe in something else, and I don't want this to sound too preachery, but like the basic human instincts are the same for everyone. Yeah. You want to wake up, someday you'll have a kid, you got to feed the kid, get to work. Whatever else you do is a bonus. And I don't know, like I said earlier, I don't know why everyone thinks that people over here are animals. People over here are stupid. We've got it right though.
Yeah.
With our reality TV and
it's just
our
ignorance,
Big Macs, we've got it sorted. I think it's just, it opens your eyes to a lot of stuff. I think we almost welcome it, whether it's voluntary or involuntary, I don't know, but we absorb all this information and we get scared of going places. And I'm not saying everyone should travel everywhere, and I'm not saying everywhere would be comfortable for everyone. It depends on what you're into. I just immediately liked any Muslim country, and they've all delivered. But there's some people that wouldn't like it because as a bloke in some places you can't wear shorts, for example, like in southern Iraq, or there's some places where you wouldn't shake a woman's hand in public, or even if she's helped you or something. And like, you can sit and, but well, I don't want to go there because these rights aren't equal or something. But then I feel like we're pretty close to trying to colonize the world again. If we need our views to be respected by them when I'm in their garden, if you know what I mean. I think if you accept that there are just some differences and find the positives in that and embrace that, it's a pretty unscary place.
I think that's what makes us beautiful though, mate. Everyone's different, you know. It's like, when I go places, I try to ask locals where to go, and straight away they want to point me to the touristy places, and I'm like, no, I want to go where you go. Do you know? I don't want to go to that bit. Yeah. Where do you go for a coffee? Do you know, that kind of thing?
Yep. And they'll love it. And especially in Muslim countries, because they're all historically travellers themselves. If they see travellers or strangers, they're almost have to welcome you in and
obligated
treat
to.
you really well. When I went to Iraq the first time, I think 6 of the nights I stayed places for free because, like, I'd been in a shared taxi. There's no public transport in Iraq, in northern Iraq, and you're in shared taxis, and some guy sees that you're not from there, and he'll be like, "Where are you staying?" I don't know. I'll find a hotel or something, and he goes, "Oh, I have a hotel. Here's a card. Turn up. They'll give you a room." I'm like, "Okay." He leaves. I leave. I go to the hotel. It's Mr. Lewis. I'm like, "Yeah." And you're on like the top floor hotel overlooking the city that's normally 150 quid a night or something. He's like, as many nights as you want. That's it. And you think, well, I've probably got more than you. Otherwise I wouldn't afford to travel here, if you know, I won't be able to afford it. They're not bothered. They won't take a penny off you. Most of them. In Mauritania, it's one of the poorest countries in the world. You won't pay for food in Mauritania.
Yeah.
They're giving you it because you're the traveller. You're welcome to them. And we'd never do that.
Particularly places like Mauritania and that, but it's quite novel for them as well, seeing a Westerner, you know. Yeah. So I bet for them, in a sense, it's like, I'm not going to charge this person, you know. I've never seen him. He's in my land, you know. I'm going to be hospitable. As a basic, fundamental, you know, right, really.
Yeah, and it's stunning for that. And I think something in general that we don't have very much of in the West. Grimsby has this. It's one of the reasons I like it. But any kind of sense of community is disappearing.
Yeah.
In cities, no one belongs there. Everyone's moved there. So it's no one's home in a lot of these cities. They're there as students or for work or something. Grimsby has this because a lot of people who say they were stuck or staying, whatever they want to use, but like the people that like it want to be here. Yeah. And there's a lot of cool things happening. But we're like a bubble, really. There's no reason we should be, objectively speaking, according to the rest of the world, we shouldn't be proud of where we're from because it's horrible. It was good 50 years ago, now it's horrible. But there's still good things amongst that in there. And
but you can't perpetuate that attitude. If everyone perpetuated that attitude, then nothing would ever get better, would it? Do you know?
No. And that's something that, I like religious places a lot. I think we've lost religion.
Yeah.
Because we've got so
secular,
efficient. Like, there's no immediate purpose to me believing this thing, so I'm not going to do it. It's a waste of my time, or this isn't real, or something. Again, I understand it a bit, but like, I like when, if everyone in a country you go to, they're very strict Muslims, whatever, you know what you're going to get. Like, they all believe the same kind of moral things, so everyone kind of agrees, and it makes it quite a cohesive environment. Whereas if no one believes in anything, you're not really sure what their values are, so you're not really sure how to approach a lot of situations. And I think nowadays we find ourselves maybe second guessing when to say what in certain, when you don't know someone. Whereas in a place, like in the middle of the desert somewhere, everyone's just agreed on the basics of humanity.
Yeah.
Let's just be nice to each other because we all eat this, no one eats this, everyone just, you know what you're going to get.
Yeah, we're very secular over here. aren't we? You know, historically, we've been a Christendom. You know, we've been a country built on Christian values. And it has lost that a bit, and I don't want to get into that whole debate. Do you know what I mean? Because you could, you know, don't want to be to me misconstrued or anything. But like you said, when people have got a common belief, they get on with the days.
Yeah, and again, I'm not saying Christianity is the answer or anyone in particular.
No, I don't think any of them have absolutely nailed it 100%. You know, but
any kind of group belief doesn't exist anymore. Wait, no, it does. That's dramatic, but you don't see it very much anymore. Everything has to have a strict purpose.
People are divided, aren't they?
Yeah,
people are very divided.
It's practical. You don't want to blind yourself with clearly unrealistic ideas because then you're ignoring the real parts of life. But I think they can go. It's moderation in it. I mean,
certainly is. So, your most recent trip, China, how long was you over there in total?
For a month.
A month.
A week was for a work thing, a competition in Shanghai that we did.
Yeah.
And then I took my holiday to do the next few weeks around the country.
So, take us through the trip. How many different places did you stay on your journey throughout China?
I have a horrible tendency to exhaust myself deliberately on trips because I'm like, I might be here once. I might never get on a plane again, like we said earlier. So I go to a lot of places and move around a lot, and I'll just come home and sleep. But I went to a lot. I wanted to go to the southwest part, which is really green and mountainy. That's in.
Is that Shuhe?
Yeah, Shuhe. Yeah, that's an old town.
That was beautiful.
It's stunning, isn't it? It's absolutely stunning.
Unbelievable. I actually wrote down. Don't look at that spelling. I wrote it like that so I could pronounce it. But I wrote that down, and it really stood out in all them videos from China you've been doing.
Yeah.
Just purely on how beautiful the place was.
Yeah, I'd say the brief summary of China is that it feels like a best hits album of all of Asia. And that is not something I've ever thought I'd say because, again, China's this giant political elephant in it where you're like, oh, they're going to hack everyone, and if there's an army, if there's a war, they're going to win because they've got 1 billion people in their army. Yeah. And it's this big, scary, unknown thing. But again, aside from that, every aspect of it objectively is incredible. It's the best infrastructure in the world. It's the cheapest country I've ever been to. For what you get as well, it's phenomenal. You'll be in like incredibly fancy accommodations. It'll be 12 quid a night on your own, not in a hostel or anything. I've never seen that in any country, not Vietnam or the Philippines that are famous for being cheap. You would never get that. But you're also on bullet trains between cities because they're the most advanced at that. Internal flights are brilliant. The food's incredible. Everything's ace. It's like if you took the best bits of Thailand, Vietnam, and everywhere and just chucked it in one. But then it is massive, so it is that.
Do you think it's because of the age of the place as well? Which it's one of the oldest places, continuous.
No, I think it's because of the Olympics, 2008. I think the Beijing Olympics kicked it all off.
Yeah.
I imagine before then it was pretty dusty. Might be wrong.
Do you think so? Do you think that's what really energised their economy and got things going?
They've built something like 30,000 miles of high-speed rail since 2008. Think how long we've taken on HS2 to do 100 miles.
Honestly, don't.
We invented the trains. We're trying to build 100 miles of them, and we can't hack it. And in the meantime,
they can't even get it from London to Birmingham, mate.
There's something I said in one of those videos. China's infrastructure is that far ahead of everyone else. They've got enough rail laid to go around the world entirely, and with what's left over is more than the rest of the world put together. That's how far ahead they are. They built a train station in 9 hours from nothing.
Yeah.
And I'm not saying it's all health and safety signed off. But I'd never thought about going. I never knew where to start, so I picked some random places. I wanted to go to the Muslim bit in the northwest.
Yeah.
That's a controversial region because everyone says that they're killing them all, and China says they're not. So it's like everyone's saying that everyone's lying.
Is that the Nashi people?
Nashi people, they're in the southwest, so they're near Shuhe and those areas. But they've got a lot of ethnic groups in China. It's not just, how can I say this correctly? It's not just people that look Chinese.
No.
There's a lot of different ethnic groups, especially in the northwest. They look very Kazakh.
Yeah.
Different kind of face shape, just different ethnic groups, and it's fascinating. And that's something else that I didn't expect, that it would be that varied. I assumed that this, because it's so big and most of it would be unusable, like Australia or something.
Yeah.
It's all brilliant. Over here, you've got some stunning rock formations. Over here, you've got some mountains and lakes. Over here, you've got the Northwest, like Silk Road stuff, mosques and whatever. Over here, you've got the most advanced city you've ever seen in your life. So you could just go there and just get lost for 20 years and you still wouldn't see it all.
So, obviously, China's become modernised, maybe since 2008, as you suggest.
It's definitely accelerated since then.
But it seems like they really bask in their culture. Am I right in saying that? It seems like no matter where you went in any of your videos, there was still something authentically Chinese about everywhere you went there.
Yeah, that's right. They're very pro-China, which is nice. And I like that about anywhere. If I go to Uzbekistan, I want to feel like I'm in Uzbekistan.
Yeah.
Otherwise, I'd be at home. If you know what I mean. I don't want everyone to feel like England. Whatever. And in China, it's very, very traditional Chinese. Even in the places like in the Muslim bits where there's different ethnic groups, they are very strong on the main ethnic group in China is the Han people. It's like 80% or 90% of the country. That's what you'll see like the big red temples. That's traditional Han culture. They put that everywhere. Again, that can be seen as controversial by some people that think they're trying to cleanse the other cultures by overpowering it with theirs.
Interesting you say that, because that is something that I would associate with being quintessentially Chinese.
Yeah, but
that type of architecture and
it's quintessentially Han.
Yeah,
and there's some people that think that what's happening is they're just overpowering the smaller ethnic minorities to eventually be 100% Han. And like the Muslim part in the Northwest,
that's interesting,
which is only one of 23 or something provinces in China, but it's bigger than the UK, France, Spain, and Germany put together. This one province, and it borders 7 countries that are all Muslim countries except Russia. And so some geopolitics will tell you that they're concerned about that, about having other ideas brought into the country over that border. So what they're trying to do is rebalance it and have more Han people there. And there's Chinese people that say that's not happening, and you can't prove either. But when I went, it was still pretty Muslim. A lot of mosques, which are nice. You don't see them very often in China. It was just really varied. But you're right. It was consistently very Chinese.
Yeah.
But there were areas where I felt like you're in a different continent, not just country. It was that vast. But then it is enormous. It's 3,200 miles from one side to the other. So when you're in the Northwest, you're nearly halfway home from Shanghai, which is in the east.
Yeah.
China is almost that big that
it's hard to quantify the size of places, isn't it?
Because
it
we're
really is
120 miles from coast to coast, and they're like 3,500, which is bigger than Europe.
Yeah.
And we've got 45 countries in Europe, and they've got one. But the landscape and everything, like I said, maybe it's a cheat code because it's so big and varied, but they've managed to use it all. They've not left it barren or something. They've made use of these cool caves or this rock formation. They've built civilizations around it and whatever, and they've made use of all of it.
It does look incredible. You're one of 2 people I know who's been there to travel, and it was my best friend went. He went traveling there for a bit, and he personally didn't like it. I don't think he really had a similar experience to you. I think he was more in the cities, but he really didn't like the element of surveillance. He felt he was consistently under.
The surveillance is mental.
Yeah.
And you get a lot of grief online for observing that there's surveillance. A lot of Chinese people are unhappy when I pointed out, I don't know if you saw the video, the last one, the Nanjing one.
There was one junction with...
I just showed one example. There's millions of them everywhere.
Yeah.
Everywhere. And I just said, people are concerned about this aspect. It is like this. The locals don't mind it because they feel safe.
Yeah.
Someone robs your phone, you ring the police and go, it was on this junction 3 minutes ago, and 5 minutes later you got your phone back. You've not even got time to sell it because they can find him. They like that. We don't in most of the rest of the world. We feel
like it impedes on our liberty, don't we? It always seems like if you're being surveilled, there's an ulterior motive to that surveillance, doesn't it?
Yeah. And for people that aren't aware, China has more cameras than the rest of the world put together. They've got one for every 2 people. They've got 700 million cameras in the country. Surveillance cameras, not other ones. Inside buildings, every traffic junction, every street, everywhere. And when I mentioned it completely neutrally online, Chinese people went mental. Yeah. Why can't you West just accept that if you do something wrong, you're going to get caught for it? Why do you hate the cameras? And I said nothing bad about them. I observed them, and I made the point that the Chinese people like them.
Yeah.
Said nothing bad about these. Yeah. And it's the only point they commented every single time.
Contentious topic then.
And I was like, do you want to pretend they don't exist? I mean, it's no conjecture. This exists physically. Look, it's there. Done.
Yeah. Yeah, and it was an odd one because my friend's quite a reasonable person, and for him to say it felt like I was overwhelmingly being surveilled, I thought it must have been pretty heavy, you know.
Yeah.
Even down to the currency you pay with, it's WeChat, isn't it? Yeah. You pay, yeah. So, you know.
Everything's, there's physical surveillance like cameras.
Yeah.
And everything else is through your phone or attached to your passport. Your train tickets, you don't get a ticket. You put your passport number in and then you go and scan your passport and it goes, yeah, you can go on this train.
Yeah.
Really good technology. But everything is tracked.
Yeah. Yeah. Every element.
Which is very unique to China, which is why I pointed it out. And they all got really mad about it. I'm like, well, you've got 700 million. They're like, oh, well, you've got more per capita in London. I'm like, yeah, I don't like London either. I don't know. What do you want me to tell you? And we need them in London because everyone's killing each other all the time.
Yeah.
So, yeah, loved it. You have to accept that, though. You can't go with any illusions under any illusion that they're not going to be there. Like, that is a fact and you're going to see them. Just behave, I suppose. But like drinking in the street, everything's fine. They're not super strict. It works fine as long as they don't change the laws tomorrow to walking in a group of three is now jailable.
Yeah.
Then you're in trouble. While, their point is obey the law. Don't matter who's watching you.
Yeah.
But we don't really believe that. But,
yeah, I mean, China's always at the... I mean, the feature in the news weekly, don't they? Oh, China's up to this, China's up to that. Oh, they're deceiving us this way, deceiving us that way. And I bet a lot of it's just propaganda,
What's incredible is they both, when I say they're both, I mean China and everyone else, because they're kind of always just slating each other.
Yeah.
And it's just like school kids. But then you go there and people are pretty nice to you. Because they're not bothered. Like no one speaks any English. You learn some Chinese, you don't need to because everything's digital, so you haven't got to speak to anyone. But China will post about America about to kill them, and they'll post about them about to kill them. It's like the thing in the northwest in Xinjiang, the province is called, with the Muslims. Everyone says this is happening, they say it's not. Oh, so we're at stalemate then, because no one can prove that it is or isn't. China can't prove they're not killing everyone, and we can't. I say we again. The West can't find any camps where they say they're doing it.
I'm not even sure if I want to say the word. Do you know what I mean? Like that sect of Islam, I don't even want to say the word. Do you know? Just in case. It's
a funny one, but it's nice. It's a nice country to go to, and I didn't expect it.
So where's on the list of places you want to visit now? I mean, you're so well travelled. You must be running out of. Well, saying that, there's so many places you could still go. But where's sparking your interest next? Do you have any plans?
I'd like to. Every year we end up working out a kind of calendar work-wise of certain events that are happening, and often I'll do a trip around them. So if we do China again, I want to get the train home from there through Russia and whatever.
Yeah.
But then also like office visits and stuff for me. So when I know that, I'll make a plan. I'd like to go to Pakistan and Afghanistan. The stands are incredible, really cool part of the world. Afghanistan's pretty chill now. As far as I'm aware, when the Taliban got in, everything chilled out because it was them that were causing the problems. So in an odd way, there's no one to fight anymore.
Yeah.
So they've won, and now and it's going to be the same thing in Syria now. Interestingly, in Syria, when I went, I paid $500 for a security clearance because Syria didn't trust me, or didn't trust anyone from the West. Paid 100 and something for a visa on the way in, and then everything else was really cheap. The nicest hotel I've ever been in my life, and everything was stunning. Now, because Assad's been kicked out, there's no visa fee and there's no visa. So this new government's coming and going, yeah, come on. And overnight, it's changed. And people are going and saying stuff about it like it's just normal now. 3 months ago, it was a completely different kind of country. And I went during the Assad thing, and as far as I found, it was fine. Everyone quite liked him. But yeah, that's changed quite a lot. And Afghanistan, I think it sounds like it's quite similar. So again, a lot of beautiful stuff. It's some of the most beautiful like mountain range and countryside stuff you'll ever see. If you Google it, it's phenomenal. You'll think it can't be Afghanistan because it's not on fire.
No, I completely believe you. Yeah, I know people have been to Afghanistan, you know, admittedly under different circumstances. But no, they're all in agreement. Beautiful place. Yeah. I mean, it's why everyone's had a problem trying to conquer it because of how mountainous of terrain it is. You know, it's not easy for war fighting.
Yeah. So yeah, one of them, I reckon. But we'll see. I mean, I'm quite satisfied. Like I've done plenty.
Yeah.
Again, if like let's say another COVID happened and I can't fly, I'm not going to be mad about it. I've made the most of those chances. But there's a few bits. I'd like to go to some more Muslim. The few Muslim countries left like that would be cool. I just feel I like how they do a lot of stuff in general.
Yeah.
I'm not bothered about anywhere like North America. I think the US itself is probably the bottom of every possible option. Yeah, except Alaska.
I'd quite like to go to America, but I want to go to Austin because the comedy culture there is just phenomenal at the minute. Yeah. So basically in COVID, all the comedians left LA and kind of set up shop in Austin. So you can go to Austin now, and on a normal night, you can see top shelf comedians from America. Oh, cool. I'm really into my American comedy, but America as a country, not particularly bothered about it, you know, in terms of visiting. But Austin, for that specific reason, comedy and comedy alone.
Didn't know that was a thing.
Did you not? No. Oh. Well, clearly not into comedy, mate.
Or music. I don't really know what I'm doing here, to be honest. Or acting.
Yeah. Well, I know it's a bit of a different one today, but I'm trying to exhibit people from Grimsby who are doing something that's sort of over and above and a bit out of the ordinary, and you fit that. You fit that completely, mate.
I've had a good run. I think I'll say that.
Yeah,
but I'll always come here. I mean, there's the Tomo one is my favorite episode so far because
thank you.
He said a couple of things. I loved the thing he said about being the start of the line. Brilliant.
Yeah,
I'm going to use that for the rest of my life.
Yeah,
because actually it's true. I never thought about it.
And
especially in my case, for example, with traveling, this is the start of the line. I go anywhere. You go to the Middle East or you go to China or somewhere. You start in Grimsby. You don't. And you come back and you're happy, but it's not the end. It's not like, oh, it's over now.
Yeah.
I loved that about that. And but like he said about working away, it's a similar thing. I work away quite a lot, and I just like being here. Like there's a lot of places that if I wanted to, I could move, I suppose, with work or otherwise. Or there's a lot of cheap countries you could live on much less money. But I just quite like it here. I like spoons. I like the walk to the gym through the West Marsh. I like that I grew up on I like coming to the docks. That's pretty cool, actually. I've not done that for a few years. And I really like Fremo. Fremo pains me a bit because Fremo's brilliant. I'd live down there if I didn't have a partner. She don't want to live down there. But I'd live in one of the flats above the shop. I love it down there. It's ace.
Yeah, I work just off Freeman Street, and, you know, just growing up around there in general, you know, it's interesting place, isn't it?
Yeah.
I wish that everyone in the world could experience Grimsby and Freeman Street.
My boss now at work, he worked on the Qatar World Cup. So he moved from FIFA to our federation after the World Cup. He spent 4.5 years there, did everything.
Yeah.
And he's absolutely convinced he wants to come to Grimsby. He says, well, tell me when there's a good match on, I want to come. And he's done he's a very high up kind of well-experienced guy, and I've convinced him that GY is the best place in the world. And at some point, we're going to have I keep planning it in my head what we'll do. We'll go end up in town, we'll have breakfast at Spoons or something, you go to Rax, go through Freshney Place, whatever, go past the boat. I can bore him with the Ross Tiger facts, walk down Fremo, go to a few pubs or whatever, go to the docks, down to Clear, watch the footy, go to the beach. It'd be the best day of his life.
Then come to a podcast.
The best day of his life. Yeah, why not? But I always kind of daydream about people that have never been here, what I'd do with them for a day. It'd be ace. Maybe I should be maybe we should be tour guides.
Do it. Why don't you be a Grimsby tour guide? Why don't you start a company giving guided tours of Grimsby? I mean, everyone could book our slots.
What do you reckon the demand's like?
I'd say very, very, very low, to be honest.
I mean, we've got a lot of historical stuff, like the Heritage Centre that no one goes to, which is a shame, but it's not used anymore apart from school kids.
I'll have you know, I went less than a year ago.
Did you?
Yeah, with my daughter. We had a great day out. There was no one there. It was dead. But yeah, it was a great time. Up on the Ross Tiger for the first time as well.
Did you?
Yeah. It's good fun, isn't it, the Ross Tiger? You used to always get dragged around it as a school kid, didn't you?
I tweeted the council once to try and buy it.
Really?
Yeah. When I first learned ages ago that they bought it for £1 because it was just going to be destroyed, wasn't it? I said I'll buy it off you for 10 grand. That's a big markup, isn't it?
Yeah.
They didn't answer me.
Oh no! You should have got Lincoln Castle before they got rid of it.
Yeah, but it's sad though, isn't it? It's one of the 700 or whatever it was trawlers. That's it. Hull got the rest of the funding. That one can't move because it'll fall apart. The bridge don't work anymore. There's not a lot of heritage. This place is brilliant, but that's it. If that one goes, then sad.
I think we've only got a handful of shellfishing boats left now, haven't we? And the rest is wind related,
which is also brilliant. And that's what I like about GY is that even when fishing died, we just turned our hand to something else. We were the top pizza producer in the world, weren't we?
Was we?
1999, yeah. Maybe it was Europe, but it was more than Italy.
Yeah.
We made more pizzas than everyone else.
First time I've heard that stat.
I'm not sure they were the same quality as a pizza you'd get in Rome, but we made a lot of them. And then green energy came about, and we're number 1 or 2 in the UK for green energy areas. As in how much of our energy that we use is from wind farms and stuff. Yeah. And also we're just a good port for it, aren't we? So there's loads. We've kind of turned our hands to other stuff, and we're still good at stuff.
Hornsea 1 and 2 out in the North Sea, and obviously the access from our dock is great, and there's Hornsea 3 that's coming online as well.
Yeah.
Hopefully it does regenerate this area a little bit. I mean, specifically the docks. It'd be nice. I mean, there is a lot going on here at the minute in terms of creativity and in industry, to be fair. If you do have a drive around, there is industry still on here. It's just that typical industry that it once was is fizzled out now. And
there's also a lot of high-paid jobs in Grimsby. Like a lot of my mates are on good salaries offshore, or even just at manufacturing places or sheet metal workers or whatever. But you can buy a house for 100 grand still. Our house was 90 grand. You can buy that. I bought that when I was working at the care, and my partner was a TA. So between us, we were on 26 grand a year, and we got an house. And you could buy it on one person's minimum wage. You could still buy a house in Grimsby. And there's not many places in the country you can do that. And for what you get for your money, if you look at anywhere outside of GY, you're paying a lot more for what you get. Here you've got the big fancy houses down Bargate and stuff. I don't know, but and Abbey Park Road and places like that. Big, 5-bedroom, stunning houses.
The period properties.
And they're like 250 grand or something. You're not even getting a flat for that in most of the country.
Yeah.
And at least normally when there's low cost houses, let's say, is also because the pay's rubbish. But there's a lot of people I know on really good wages that can nearly buy one of them outright in a year because of how much they earn compared to house price. So that ratio is also really encouraging, that we're part of the country that you can get decent property for a decent price and earn a lot of money if you wanted to. There's plenty of it about. It's an interesting, I feel like it's a secret. The rest of you go to London, you'll get paid 25% more, but it's going to cost double for everything.
Yeah, your standard of living in London, unless you're really well off, it's not good.
And this might not be the right place to really say it, but you can buy a pint for £1 somewhere in GY. In Spoons, they'll do offers now and again, and you're not going less than £6 in other places of the country. And I'm only using that as a unit of currency.
Yeah. I mean, you could have used Freddos or anything, obviously.
Well, Freddos are a fixed price; they're set by the company. Yeah, but even spoons, the GY spoons is cheaper than Clee spoons.
Is it?
Everything. Yeah, it's loads cheaper. You get a full breakfast in GY spoons for £3. It's £5 in Cleethorpes. And that's not an offer, that's all the time. There you go.
Cleethorpes has been gentrified, though, hasn't it? Let's be honest.
Yeah, it's where all the rich people go. That's why I stay in town all the time.
Me too, mate. Me too. If you ever need me, I'll be kicking about town. Right, mate. Having a great time talking to you. Yeah, I feel like we could go on a lot longer, and I feel like there's a lot of things we haven't covered, but maybe there's a good reason there to get you in for a part 2 sometime.
I'd love to. I love all this that you do and everything. I think it's brilliant.
Thanks, mate. Having a stab at it. I mean, things are going wrong here and there, and
I mean, the camera stopped recording a while ago.
Yeah, but we we power through. And
this is cool. The place where it's based is cool. There's a lot of good charity stuff happening in GY in general, but I've learned a lot about this whole bit that I didn't know before, and that's through the podcast. So without the podcast, I wouldn't know about Creative Start. So
that's what we're all about, mate. Trying to spread awareness of obviously what they're doing here in terms of recovery and addiction, but also what we're doing here in terms of creativity, you know, with the gigs I'm putting on and the music venue we've got opening next door in the near future. Just trying to basically get our foot, well, we've already got a foot in the door on the docks, but it's just trying to pioneer that kickstart and make it into a creative hub for people. Yeah. There's all sorts. I couldn't even tell you all the creative elements of what's going on down here at the moment. There's all sorts going on, from videography to cooking classes. So
yeah, good. Good that it's used for something, isn't it? It's not going to be a dock anytime soon, so might as well repurpose it. And there's a lot of stuff I suppose I didn't mention about action sports stuff that the town's really good for, but maybe that's another conversation.
I'm sure we can.
There's loads of value in pretty much everywhere. People just don't tend to look for it. But if they knew it existed, whether it's skate parks or whether it's creative spaces or anything, we've got a lot. We've got a lot going on in GY.
Yeah, we truly have. And well, your personification of that, mate. So thanks again. We'll have to do this again sometime.
I've enjoyed that. I'm sorry if I'm surprised if anyone's made it to the end. I've yapped on quite a bit, but I've had a good time. So
yeah, it's been great, mate. It's been
Cheers,
great.
Though.
Thanks.